Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, November 9th, 2018. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, host of the Benjamin Dixon Show, Benjamin Dixon. Also on the program today, host of Just Kill Me Now and star of the Judy Gold Show, Judy Gold. Also on the program, the blue wave getting wavier as Kristen Sinema takes the lead in Arizona. And the Florida governor and Senate races enter into the realm of mandatory recount. Votes are still being counted. Nelson still has a chance of being on top when they enter into this recount. Meanwhile, in Georgia, Stacey Abrams calls for provisional ballot casters in hopes of pushing for a runoff. Right now, just outside that margin. And as protests start across the U.S. in an attempt to protect Mueller, Trump's new acting AG can't stop existing indictments from being unsealed. Meanwhile, on his way out, professional racist Jeff Sessions limits the Fed's ability to control racist police departments across the country. An Obama appointee federal court judge halts the Keystone Pipeline based upon the actions of an Obama Secretary of State. And a Clinton appointee fines against Trump on DACA, but why that may not end up so well. Meanwhile, Ryan Zinke may take his 18 investigations and go work for Fox, and Justice Ginsburg at home after a fall leaves her with 3 fractured ribs, fingers crossed. And the migrant caravan, remember that? Exhibit A in the media's failure to cover an election. And Greyhound sued for its ICE complicity. All that and more on today's program, ladies and gentlemen. That complicity thing, I don't know what just happened there, but it just sounded like one of those words, like when you say it, all of a sudden you're like, that doesn't sound like a word. I should also say, you'll notice that when I mentioned the halting of the Keystone Pipeline and the finding against Trump on DACA, we now have a new style guide here at the Majority Report where we always, when we talk about any federal court ruling, will remind you who appointed that judge so that the idiots who exist out there who don't appreciate the importance of the federal judiciary, I'm not naming any names, but for people who don't understand the importance of the president having the ability to nominate federal judges and place them on the federal judiciary, this is a teachable moment.
What about advocating for a reverse axle filibuster? You never hold Democrats accountable because you're motivated out of fear at many MSNBC.
So, the Keystone Pipeline is a great example of this. Now, I don't know if this gets going to get kicked up. Probably won't in any time soon. But essentially, because the Obama administration, specifically the State Department, John Kerry's State Department, found that the environmental factors outweighed the national interests, or at least were more compelling national interests to the United States, that exists. And that creates a higher bar for subsequent administrations as to reversing that decision. Now, a Donald Trump appointed judge, I imagine, would say, yes, the Trump administration could do this. So it also is a teachable moment in terms of the flexibility of the law. And so this is pretty important stuff going forward and actually backwards. But we can't go backwards. We can only go forwards. So I just wanted to plant a flag there, as it were. The migrant caravan, incidentally, is in Mexico City now, which one would imagine would be creating all sorts of concerns within the media, right? Because they're more north than they were 2 weeks ago. Yet nothing. Really shocking that. But let's, this has been a long week, folks. And on Fridays, what we like to do is to go back in time and look over the week. So let's go all the way to what this was Tuesday morning, I believe, or maybe Monday night, the beginning of this week, when Sinclair Media sat down, although they were standing, with Donald Trump.
Is there anything, as you look back at your first almost 2 years, that you regret, that you wish on you, that you could just take back and redo?
Well, there would be certain things. I'm not sure I want to reveal all of them, but I would say tone. I would like to have a much softer tone. I feel to a certain extent I have no choice, but maybe I do, and maybe I could have been softer from that standpoint. But
okay, so there it was. And, you know, of course, he goes on to equivocate and say, but basically tone. Let's check in now. It's the end of the week. We are now 4 days later. And this morning, how is that project on tone going, President Trump?
Are you going to leave Jim Acosta in the penalty box?
I think Jim Acosta is a very unprofessional man. I think he does this with everybody. He gets paid to do that. You know, he gets paid to burst in. He's a very unprofessional guy. Whether it was me or Ronald Reagan or anybody else, he would have done the same thing. Look, I don't think he's a smart person, but he's got a loud voice. And here, wait, David, do you mind if I answer the question? And as far as I'm concerned, I haven't made that decision, but it could be others also. When you're in the White House, this is a very sacred place to me. This is a very special place. You have to treat the White House with respect. You have to treat the presidency with respect.
You got to treat me with respect.
If you've ever seen him dealing with Sarah Huckabee Sanders, it's a disgrace. And he does it for, you know, the reason. The same thing with April Ryan.
Yeah, let me
watched her
mention,
get up.
let me get someone,
I mean, you talk about
person
somebody
of color
that's a
included in
loser.
this.
She doesn't know what the hell she's doing. She gets publicity, and then she gets a pay raise, or she gets a contract with, I think, CNN.
It's all about money.
But she's very nasty, and she shouldn't be. She shouldn't be. You've got to treat the White House and the office of the presidency with respect.
It's a little thing called RSE.
But wait a second. But let's not. Maybe there could be other occasions. Maybe we just caught him at a bad moment, and that tone project's going better.
Do you expect Matt Whitaker to be involved in the Russia probe? Do you want him to?
That's up to him.
Do you want him to rein in Robert Mueller?
What a stupid question that is. What a stupid question. But I watch you a lot. You ask a lot of stupid questions.
He's such a bitch. Donald Trump is such a nasty
messy bitch who loves drama.
Wow.
He also is starting to slide into very close to where my Jewish grandmother was when she was besieged with ailments.
I don't like you. You're black.
I'm fine.
Is that
I'm
what
fine.
happened?
Yeah, more like. I don't.
You thought I didn't do subtext before. How's this? I hate you. You are a black woman. I am a grotesque.
He seems to
mess.
be a little bit uptight. But
I'm having a ragegasm.
So I would say I don't know. Can you really grade this guy on effort? I mean,
No.
can you? Does he have like enough, even self-awareness, to grade him on effort? I think I would have to give him a really not a passing grade.
He's
on
off
the
his
tone
game.
project.
He's
yeah,
off his
I
game.
would
He's
say
not even on his game for being like funny and being a dick. He's clearly having a lot of anxiety, and it's making him tense, and his performance
It's
is off.
hard to build new habits, okay?
Well, we'll talk about. I want to talk about this with Ben Dixon about the implications of if Ben Nelson ends up taking the Senate and Kristen Sinema ends up taking the Senate. It's going to create some interesting dynamics that are very different than if either one of them loses. But we'll discuss that in a moment. Before we get there, folks, you know because I've told you, and you must show respect for the podcast. The podcast needs to get respect. Casper is a sleep brand that continues to revolutionize its line of products to create exceptionally comfortable sleep experiences one night at a time. We have 2 Casper mattresses between us. You have one too?
I just bought a Casper last week.
You did?
Excellent.
Did you use the coupon code?
Upgrade. Yes, I did.
All right, good job. I don't. Did you get there are 3 models. You know that, right, Michael? There's the original Casper, the
Right.
Wave, and the Essential.
I got the original Queen.
There you go. Whoa.
That's the one I have.
Queen. You have a Queen too?
Yeah.
You guys are making me so jealous.
It's excellent.
I'm from the middle of the country. We have big beds out there.
Well, I guess so. Hello. Well, excuse me. The Casper mattresses are perfectly designed to soothe and cradle your natural geometry. Not to mention, the breathable design helps you sleep cool and regulates your body temperature throughout the night. And it's delivered in your to your door in a small, how do they do that size box, with free shipping and returns in U.S. and Canada. Did you enjoy that unboxing? Did you guys?
I did.
There you go, right?
It could not have been. I mean, it comes there. You just carry the thing up the stairs. It's nothing. And
It's
then
super
you just
easy.
slash the box open and you're done. It's amazing.
Well, let's be careful when you're slashing the box. You don't want to slash the mattress. Just be careful with the box.
Yes, be careful out there. Watch yourself.
The best part of buying a Casper is that you can be sure of your purchase with Casper's 100-night risk-free sleep-on-it trial. You're still within your 100 days, aren't you?
Indeed.
Nights. After
I'm
all,
lording it over them. I email customer service every day. I don't know.
we'll see. Last night was good, but who knows about tonight?
Who knows what tonight may bring?
I'm going to try it out with a slightly different amount of drinking that I'm going to be doing.
There's a lot of variables to test out on a new mattress.
Dear Casper, today
There's a
I
lot.
did yoga. We're going to see.
Today I did yoga. Tomorrow I drink.
Um,
And not to mention the guests.
Look, folks, you spend 1/3 of your life sleeping, or if you're like me, 1/16. So you should be comfortable. Now, you, our listeners, can get $50 toward a select mattress by visiting Casper.com/majority and using majority at checkout. So that's Casper.com/majority. Offer code majority for $50 off your mattress purchase. Terms and conditions apply, of course, ones that I can't get into now because I'm not familiar with them. But they're not, I didn't notice any terms and conditions.
Me neither.
I don't know.
It's
Maybe
my style.
You can't do like double sessions of yoga and then say, I don't know. And folks,
What's a
as
double
always,
session of
I
yoga?
have no idea.
Okay.
I
That's
have
what
no
I thought.
idea.
I just was curious if you had been introduced to something recently.
We always, well, actually,
After a broadcast, I learned
we,
about double sessions of yoga.
we
So excited.
we will put the
Ow,
we
I
always
hurt
put
myself.
the offer codes in the podcast description. I went out the other night with old friends John Benjamin and David Cross, and David Cross is trying to entice me into hot yoga.
Tell me when you're going.
That's what-
I will go to the same class.
Why, you think I can't handle it?
I have no idea what you can and can't handle. I just want to be there.
I've heard that's what the NBA players do, so I've been curious about that as well.
All right, I may.
Even
The amount of toxins that are going to come out of your body within the first hour of doing that class.
They're actually
objectively, you will get sick.
They're going to make a noise when they hit the ground, the toxins, as they drop out.
I mean,
they're going to be solid.
Somebody dropping change?
You're going to look like those creepy dudes from the latest season of Twin Peaks. The ones who took over the... Oh, never mind.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Ben Dixon. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report on the phone. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the program the host and proprietor of the Benjamin Dixon Show, Benjamin Dixon, and also now the one of the proprietors of the North Star. Ben, welcome to the program. What's the North Star?
The North Star. Hey, Sam, first of all, thanks so much for having me, man. It's always a pleasure. The North Star is the abolitionist paper started by Frederick Douglass. And I have partnered with Sean King. And with the permission and the blessing of the descendants, the family of Frederick Douglass, we are relaunching the North Star as a digital platform. It's going to be a comprehensive media or company that does podcasts, videos, original journalism, the whole 9 yards. So that's what we're doing, building the northstar.com.
That's so awesome. I'm very excited. When do you launch?
So we started it's been crazy, man. It has definitely been a ride so far. We did a pre-launch on last Thursday, a week and a day ago. And we had 120,000 people who signed up, expressed interest in participating, reading our content, donating, and all sorts of things. So we started that just last week, 120,000 signups. And we are looking to launch in earnest in 2019 around the birthday of Frederick Douglass. Now, we have a lot of things that are happening in between now and then, February 14th, which is his birthday. A lot of things that are going to happen between now and then, but that's when we want to make our public-facing launch.
Wow, that's super exciting. Congratulations on that.
Thanks so much, man.
That's really great. Folks can head over. What's the address? It's
buildingthenorthstar.com.
Great. Buildingthenorthstar.com. We'll put a link to that in the podcast description and in our YouTube description and whenever
awesome,
our
man.
descriptions appear. All right. So, Ben, crazy week.
Yeah.
Not too dissimilar from any other week, except for the nature of the craziness a little bit different. But
yeah.
So, all right. So the midterm elections, it seems like as the days have passed, the Democrats did better than certainly it appeared on Tuesday. But they did, it seemed to me, like as of Tuesday, about around where anybody, within basically the middle of predictions, I would say.
Yeah. No, I think they did a little better than the predictions. I think, honestly, we had our hearts wrapped up into two races in particular. The governor's race here in Georgia and in Florida. Those are really matters of our heart. And our hearts were broken. And so it was hard to look at all of those seats that flipped in the House and be excited about it because our hearts were broken. But we flipped, 30-some seats? I don't even know the final total at this point. And Of course, Nancy Pelosi has an opportunity to probably be the speaker again. There's some challenges to that. We'll see how that plays out. But I mean, that's a significant deal. Anyone who thought we were going to get the Senate, I was joking around about it. I don't care about bets. I'll make a crazy bet any day. But I honestly knew the odds were against us in the Senate with the number of red state Democrats that were up for re-election. And out of the red state Democrats that we lost, I wish we could have lost Joe Manchin and kept maybe one or two of the other ones, but I digress. Right. The point is, it was an uphill battle, and we expected that. So hot takes being hot takes, people gave them that night. That became the narrative, but it panned out differently over the last few days.
Yeah, I think it's now we're up to 36 or something, and the percentage of vote. I mean, here's the other thing that is pretty clear too. The percentage of vote that the Democrats got across the country was as big as some of the other past like wave elections. Right. Like 2010, I think it was even bigger than what the Republicans got. The pickups in the number of seats as a function of, there's still this sort of like a mini debate. Is it self-sorting or is it gerrymandering? I think having talked to David Daly, I can't remember his name now, but he wrote a book about rat eft. And I'm quite convinced that this is about gerrymandering rather than self-selecting. I think there's some of that going on, but I don't think it's that dramatic. And so the Democrats, in terms of like the national vote, and that's it's only relevant insofar, and this is also true of the Senate, right? Like there was 10 million more Democratic votes for 4 less Democratic senators than Republicans. And it's obviously it was true for the past, like I think 7 of 8 or 6 of 7 presidential elections. The country votes Democratic. We may have we do have other sort of another layer of determining who wins these seats, whether it's the president or the Senate or the House. But the fact of the matter is the country votes by several percentage points more for Democrats than they do Republicans. And so now the question is like, where is the structural reform, or how much more do you need to actually make it a governing majority?
Right. And that's here's the problem with what, not with what you said, but the follow through here. The structural reform that's necessary to have the voices of the majority of America represented on the federal level requires Democrats who are going to fight like hell. It requires Democrats who are willing to go in and make structural changes that are going to seem anti-institutional, right? That go counter to the status quo. I don't know that we have those Democrats in leadership positions. I'll just leave it at that. I do think that we have some new Democrats that have gone to the Congress who might be willing to fight dirty. I can't remember the name. David, the author of the book, who wrote the book Fight Dirty, who recommends that we get rid of the Electoral College because there are structural impediments to having the voice of the majority of Americans heard. And Republicans have exploited those structural advantages relentlessly on top of their willingness to break the rules. So not only are they breaking the rules, but they're exploiting the rules to their favor, the existing rules to their favor. And unless we get Democrats who are going to go in there and tear this apart and do it on the behalf of the right thing, then we're going to always be fighting these structural impediments.
Well, and I would say the first thing that that I hope and I frankly would like to see. I mean, I think it's time for a change in leadership. Now, Nancy Pelosi has said that this is her transition year. I don't know what that means. She doesn't want to specifically say she's a lame duck, et cetera, et cetera. But I would like to see that transition happen a little bit more quickly. With that said, we're going to see what the structure of the Democratic leadership is beyond those top positions. And if they start reaching out to some of those people and elevating them and putting them into some type of like, sort of training positions and giving them, sort of like the institutional education that they need, then, that may satisfy that feeling. But the first thing I hope that they go in and do is, and there's no reason why they can't do it. They won't pass the Senate, or maybe it will pass the Senate, is to come up with a new formula for Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act that was gutted by the Supreme Court. Now, remember, the Supreme Court said that it's okay to have a formula for pre-clearance where, certain states need to check with the Department of Justice before they make changes. But we just don't like the way you've done it now. So Congress needs to come up with a new way. That should be something they work on. For instance, here's an perfect example of this problem. And I'm not exactly sure of the exact breakdown of these votes because I've seen two different things, but I'm going to give the Republicans the benefit of the doubt. In North Carolina, they won 50.3% of North Carolina's votes for Congress. They have 13 seats in Congress that go from North Carolina. They have 10 of them. So you basically have a 50-50 state, and you'd imagine that, like, okay, maybe it's 8-5, maybe it's 7-6 in favor of Republicans, maybe it's 6-7 in terms of Republicans to Democrats. It is 10 of 13. It is 10-3 with a 50%. I mean, that's effed up. That is a direct result of the Supreme Court rolling back the Voting Rights Act, and then North Carolina going to town with gerrymandering, which we know is racially also like, I want to say it's racist in practice, but it is, race is used as a proxy there. Or I should say, go ahead.
There are literally segments of North Carolina, the way they've gerrymandered that state into oblivion. There are literally strips where the district is less than a mile wide, and though that cuts through urban centers, right? And so they've done what gerrymandering does. They've grouped and then they've cracked districts to make sure that there's no threat. And you can literally see the gerrymandered map evolve every so many years into how it changed from being a 50-50 state into being this 10-13 state, 10-3 state rather. And it happens on the wings of I'm not one who always attack the Democrats, right? I think that's a very necessary institution, and it's probably the only institution we have right now to fight back against the Republicans. But this happens on their watch. Like they observe it as it's happening, and they make one mistake, right? They allow one piece of legislation or they allow something to happen where Republicans get their foot in the door and they will exploit it to the point where now you no longer recognize the districts from North Carolina and anywhere else. So, but to your point, I think it's actually a brilliant recommendation. That should be the very first thing that they do, and they can pass it in the House. Good luck in the Senate. You see some hope there for a reform to the Voting Rights Act, the Section 5 passing the Senate?
I don't, but I do see that as a liability for those senators who vote against it. Right? I mean, so, all eyes turn to 2020 in terms of taking back the Senate. It's still going to be super tough because, red states have hardened. But let's take Georgia, for instance. I mean, Georgia is now, I think, if not already.
Purple, man.
Yeah. And let's just go over it. I saw this breakdown from, I think it was Charlie Cook. So these are counties in Georgia, and you would know these counties and their relevance more than I would. But these are metropolitan Atlanta counties. From 2012 to 2018, Gwinnett went to a from an R+9 to a D+14. That's a 23-point swing. Cobb went from R+12 to a D+9. Henry, 3.3 to a D+15. Douglas went from a D+4 to a D+20.4. Fulton went from a D+29 to a D+45. DeKalb went from D plus 43 to a D plus 67. Fayette went from an R plus 31 to an R plus 13. Forsyth, R plus 62 to an R plus 42. So we're looking at these.
I'm about to run against one of these Republicans. That's a good turn
I
of the
think you
tide
better
there.
start thinking about it, because
what has happened? Two counties in particular that I want to point out before you move on. Gwinnett County has been a natural evolution in just terms of population, right? There have been so many more African Americans who have just moved into Gwinnett County, and that accounts for some of the change. Cobb County, I am blown away by, because Cobb County is one of those counties that you just have to, like, I used to work in Cobb County. Our studios used to be in Cobb County, and I can't really tell the story without telling on myself. So marijuana is very legal in Boston, very illegal in Cobb County. You just don't don't smoke weed within 30 days of driving in Cobb County. That's they will pull you over and arrest you for their suspicion. I think you look high, and that disproportionately hurts black people. That's how entrenched Cobb County is. And to see that type of shift in a county like that blows me away. Gwinnett, I'm not as surprised because demographically it's been changing, but Cobb County, if you can make Cobb County even remotely purple, then something is definitely happening. And Newt Gingrich's seat, District 6, I believe, Lucy McBath just took that away from Karen Handel.
Yep, and that was the Ossoff seat.
Yeah, the Ossoff seat, exactly. And so that shows you, right? So this is the real narrative is this from Tuesday night. Our hearts were broken, but I think the real narrative has to be this. You lay the groundwork. Ossoff, you can't take that away from him. He laid some serious groundwork there, right? He lost, but just a few months later, Lucy McBath was able to win. Gillum, we'll see how that works out in Georgia, in Florida, and Abrams. We'll see how the recounts and the impossible runoff plays out. But if they don't win, you have to understand, like, this is the bloody red South. This is the Confederate flag waving South. This is where you really shouldn't be out past certain times of night in certain counties. It literally is still that way. And the fact that they got that close to turning this state turning the state blue in the governor's seat, the next campaign doesn't bode well for Republicans. I think we're headed in the right direction, as hard as Tuesday night was, according to the hot takes.
And what do you think? What do you think accounts for that?
Absolutely. No, I got it. The organizers, I have to pause. I'm glad you said that. The organizers on the ground in these two states, the campaigns and the way they worked with local organizers, city by city, block by block. I mean, the canvassing that took place was unbelievable. And this is why, in response to a tweet from Chris Hayes, he was talking about pouring $100 million into organizers. I'm like, yes, but it needs to be organizers in the South, and it needs to be black organizers, because they literally they're changing the face of the South. I mean, the style of politics, it's changing. You're getting a more progressive breed of politicians coming from the South,
right.
So it has to 100% go to the local organizers.
It's funny because on the beginning of election eve night, Chuck Todd was on MSNBC, Chuck Todd of all people. And I have to say, like, this is probably, I don't know, the first time in maybe more than a decade, if not ever, I have ever quoted Chuck Todd approvingly. But he said at the beginning of the night, when I think people still had, look, Abrams theoretically is still in it, and Gillum is still theoretically in it. And at the very least, the how close it was, like you say, is an achievement in and of itself. But he said there's a message for Democrats here between those two and Beto to a certain extent too, because Texas is Texas. It's very Republican. That maybe the Democrats shouldn't be looking for moderates; they should be looking for progressives in these places. And he was still echoing that. I think yesterday maybe. And so it's going to be interesting to see if that message gets conveyed. I think it will. But I think your point about organizing is absolutely right, because there's that's the way that you get back that 2008 Obama coalition. right?
Yeah.
Is by driving the vote out, and we saw a good example of this.
One fine point I want to make on that detail is with the progressive. This is I'll just say it, and however it falls. There's a tradition in the Black community that is far more radical than probably any socialist would ever really dream of. Like, there is a Black radical tradition that is waiting and dormant and not satisfied with establishment Democratic politics, and they want something like Bernie Sanders and further to the left. And that's really kind of the style of campaign that Stacey Abrams kind of flirted with, and Andrew Gillum flirted with. But the organizers on the ground, they understood the language, they understood what we were looking for, they understood how to convey it, and that's what mobilized and is changing the South. So I'll say it like this: if you want to win in the South, you're going to have to be radical. You just have to be, because the Black community is what you need. You're not going to get us if you're talking some milquetoast, centrist, Democratic language.
Or you have to be close enough to being radical that it can be communicated and reinterpreted on the
multiple levels. Yeah,
closer to the ground as having the potential for radicalism.
Absolutely. You got to at least be in the ballpark. But what you can't be is, I hate to say this, you can't be Hillary Clinton centrist. You can't. I don't want to relitigate 2016, but if you want the South, you got to communicate to us in a more radical language, and you have to connect with the Black church, and there's just so many things that are present in the South that just people who are not from here would not understand. And this is what we've been screaming. Black organizers have been screaming for the longest. Hey guys, this is how you win the South. And we see the results in the changing. I mean, we're turning Georgia purple, or we have turned it purple. I think 2020, it might actually go blue. So, I mean, they really need to listen to the organizers on the ground. That's all I have to say about it.
And if the Democrats are going to take the Senate in 2020, they're going to have to figure out how to take one or two of these southern states. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And Arizona, maybe there's an opportunity there, going forward, but maybe in some of the Southwest a little bit. I mean, New Mexico is now about as you can't there. I don't even know if there's a single elected Republican in the entire state now in New Mexico. But moving back to the South, there's going to have to be, to get the the numbers in the Senate. That's where it's going to have to be. You're going to have to knock off like Susan Collins, and you're going to have to because it's going to be tricky. Now, let's just talk about this for a moment. If Bill Nelson, who is now somewhere around like 10,000 votes away from taking the lead, this is before the recount, taking the lead in Florida. They're still counting down there. I don't know how many votes are extant in like Broward County, but it's not inconceivable that he'll be within 1,000 votes when this is done. Before they head into a recount. And then we can also talk about the Florida recount. I'm going to get hives talking about it because that's basically why I'm sitting here, in my estimation, is because of that recount in Florida 19 years ago now, or 18 years ago. But so the difference between having Nelson and Sinema in the Senate, right, where it is 52 to 48, as opposed to 54 to 46, is pretty big, because this is where it's going to land, right? You have Murkowski and Collins, who are going to be supposedly are going to be in that fulcrum now, right? And Mitt Romney is going to be the Jeff Flake. And this is going to put a lot of pressure on Mitt Romney, it seems to me, because I think he thinks he can go in there and pull a Jeff Flake. But the difference is that I think Mitt Romney has aspirations beyond the Senate, and Jeff Flake clearly just had him in the business. And so this is going to put a certain amount of pressure on Mitt Romney. If, Democrats can, and Collins, there's somebody out there who hasn't stepped up yet, but will, who's going to have a $4 million war chest on day one.
Oh, yes.
Running against Susan Collins. So she is going to be, there's a certain amount of discipline that is going to be exercised on Susan Collins by her constituents. And Murkowski, I would imagine the same thing on some level. And so these two seats make a difference, not a dramatic difference, because we're still, you know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg fractured a couple of ribs, and now everybody's just like, you know, this is
take me,
scary.
Lord, take me.
Yeah,
take my ribs. What do you need? What do you need, RGB? I got you. What's your blood type? We you know, it's going to be tough. I mean, there's two levels, like you've already outlined. The actual race in Florida, there are a lot of irregularities. There's the fact that more people appear to have voted for the Senate race versus the governor's race. That's a little strange when you consider the amount of advertising and the amount of awareness about the governor's race. I mean, you see a drastic difference in the numbers there. And even now, I was just reading that there are protesters outside of, they're conservative protesters trying to block the recount. Now, when you say you get hives because it takes you back to 2000, the thing I remember the most were those guys the Brooks Brothers protest, right, where they stormed the election supervisor's office and tried to shut down the recount. Well, they're doing that again. They're right now.
John
ABC
Roberts, incidentally, was one of them, if I'm not mistaken. Literally one of them.
Did not know that.
Yes.
I did not know that. Wow. So, I mean, but this just shows you, like, their tactics haven't changed. What they're trying to do, their willingness to obstruct justice or obstruct the election process, the enfranchisement. I mean, they don't care, and they're willing to do all these things. So we'll see how that plays out. I think that we just have to have a different approach altogether. And I love what they did with Susan Collins and the war chest that has been raised against her. Like, I don't know if that would, no, I can confidently say that something like that would not have happened from Democratic ranks. That came from the people. That came from grassroots. And that's really going to be our salvation in a lot of ways. We have to have the grassroots movements push the Democratic Party into being the type of leaders that we need right now, which are leaders who understand the score, who understand that the Republicans are fully aware that they're lying. They're fully aware that they are disenfranchising millions of people. They're fully aware that they're suppressing the vote. They are fully aware that these tax breaks don't help anybody but rich people. That's the entire point. And they have no problem with hypocrisy. And if Democrats are triangulating or trying to be bipartisan, we're going to repeat history all over again. And our only hope, I think, is the grassroots movements that will hold our leaders to the fire, feet to the fire.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, you know, we need to have Democratic leaders who have the ability to hear this stuff. Like, I honestly feel like Chuck Schumer and Pelosi at this point don't even have the ability to hear it. Like, it's just that it's almost as if they're just the bubble that they're in. You know, they may also have different agendas, which I have no doubt. But I think there's going to be, there is going to be a little bit of pushback on their leaderships if they're not. Particularly Pelosi, you know, has the opportunity to sort of like exemplify how she's going to transition. I don't know that it's going to happen with Schumer, but my sense is, my understanding is, there hasn't been anybody public who has been complaining about Schumer because in the Senate, because it is not to their benefit, right? There's no value in the Senate. Mm-hmm. You can get away with that in the House. It's tougher to get away with that in the Senate unless there's a sense that, like, we're all in this, right?
And you know, the thing, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you continue.
I was going to say that bothers me a little bit because I have more of a gripe with Chuck Schumer than I do with Nancy Pelosi. Now, you know, there is time for new leadership, but I can say one thing about Nancy Pelosi is that she knows what the hell she's doing.
Yes.
The question
Without
is,
a doubt.
Right. She can get it done. But the question is, what is it? Right. What does she want to get done? Because whatever she wants to get done, I think she's probably the best equipped to do it in terms of using the levers of power, twisting arms, slamming down the hammer, doing what she needs to do. The real question is, what is it? What does she want to do? Chuck Schumer, I just don't think he can get anything done. He couldn't even hold Joe Manchin.
I think you're absolutely right about this. I think Pelosi is, from a practical standpoint, she never brought a bill to the floor that they couldn't pass. She could count votes much better than John Boehner ever could or Paul Ryan ever could. They never had a moment where they thought they could do something and didn't do it. Chuck Schumer is, I mean, putting aside all ideologies and whatnot, Chuck Schumer is just incompetent. He's just incompetent. He's bad at politics. And I think there's probably, my understanding there's a lot more to that story too. He's just like, he's bad at interpersonal politics. He's bad at politics. And the reason why he's there apparently is just that Dick Durbin, people thought that Dick Durbin would step up and fight, and he didn't. And Chuck Schumer raises so much money that he has the ability to basically create a dynamic where he has favors being owed to him. And that is the way that people build political, strength. And he was able to do that. But I think the guy, beyond his ability to raise a lot of money because of where he is situated, he is bad at politics. And it's certainly bad at dealing with these institutional politics. But
oh my God, and dealing with this breed of republicanism, I honestly think that he's delusional in thinking that there is a time where we can actually have more measured politics or more civil politics. I think he actually believes that we can go back to that. I don't know that I believe Nancy Pelosi when she says that she wants to be bipartisan.
Right.
I think that she's got to say that enough to say that and stab every Republican with an ice pick. I think she's cold enough to do that. But the real question is, the jury is out for me. I just want to know what it is that she wants to accomplish, and if that falls in line with what all of us want to accomplish, I can honestly say I don't know anyone more effective at getting it done. So if anyone's asking questions about Nancy, I think it should be what does she want to get done? Because if you like what she wants to get done, I don't know anybody else who's more competent. But Chuck Schumer, for certain, I don't think that there's anyone I think anybody could be better than Chuck Schumer in the Senate. I firmly believe that based on his record so far.
Couldn't agree more. And I should just add, for the Florida stuff, one of the problems is going to be, and I remember this, and Ron Klain, who was, I think, one of the attorneys for Al Gore at the time, and Matt just tells me, too, that Kavanaugh, I think I knew this, was also part of the Brooks Brothers riot. So,
oh, come on. Seriously?
Yeah. And but one of the problems that took place in Florida in 2000 was that Palm Beach, well, all the counties, Broward, I think it is, has only one machine to do a recount, right? And if there's going to be 3 recounts in that county, it's going to take time, like physical time. But there is a deadline by the state that the state does not provide waivers for. And if you do not do all your recounting by that deadline, you have to ignore the votes that you haven't recounted.
Wow.
And so this was a big issue. That's what the value of shutting down that recount was to that Brooks Brothers riot, because it actually pushed it up against the deadline. And then Catherine Harris, it's Palm Beach specifically. Catherine Harris said, we're not giving waivers to the recount. And then the Florida State Supreme Court said, you got to recount it. And then the U.S. Supreme Court said in the Bush v. Gore that they halted the recount. And then I went on to take, and I think, some listeners of this program know that I took about 1,000, this is before digital cameras, I took 1,000 pictures of my television, literally 1,000 pictures of my television during the course of the recount. And that the whole trajectory of my life, I think, brought me to this point. But put that aside for a moment, because that's not important. So Ben, let's just briefly talk about this. This is the election. There was there's a lot of other smaller issues. I would say this also, one thing that's relevant about the Florida Gillum race. There are 3 state Supreme Court seats in Florida that Rick Scott tried to appoint. The Florida State Supreme Court, dominated by Democratic appointees, 4-3, I think it is, would not allow him to do it because I'm not exactly sure I'm not familiar exactly, but he was prevented from doing that. The next governor will pick 3 Supreme Court seats and will swing the balance of the Florida State Supreme Court to Republicans if it is obviously DeSantis. That, on top of everything else, that's the stakes involved in Florida. On a federal level, Jeff Sessions fired very quickly after the election. Whitaker is put in there. Just briefly, we saw protests yesterday around the country, pretty decent mobilization for something that is second order, right? It's not the stopping of the Mueller investigation. What's your take on the Whitaker situation?
So this, I am surprised that Donald Trump would appoint someone like him and in the fashion that he did, but I shouldn't be surprised because this is Donald Trump we're talking about. I'm actually impressed that Donald Trump was willing to just say F it and fire Jeff Sessions. What was it, the same day, the day after the election? I thought he would at least wait a week maybe, but no, he took it on the chin and said, I'm going to do it. So that was kind of impressive. In terms of what Whitaker stands for, I mean, it's a complete anathema, right? It's completely contrary to what any attorney general should believe, particularly his religious litmus test that he's going to place in this position. So that's extremely problematic. But I do want to say something real quick about the protest that erupted. I'm seeing a lot of hot takes about these protests being in favor of Mueller and more specifically in favor of Jeff Sessions. And that's not really what's going on, right? People are protesting because the president of the United States is in his own is obstructing justice. And I don't know what else they were supposed to do besides, take to the streets and let their dissent be heard.
Is that coming from the left that you're hearing those?
Yeah, man. I still hang out in some left circles.
Right, listen. So that's. And I hesitate to say the left because it's not that the leftism has anything to do with it as much as sort of the dumbness. Jeff Sessions is could not be more racist or more detrimental or more unqualified to be the chief law enforcement officer in the country, but for maybe Whitaker. But with that said, the protests are not in support of Jeff Sessions. They are trying to pressure essentially Republicans and Democrats and the establishment of the country and saying, look, we're watching this. We're aware of what's going on. And there is reporting that the White House is a little bit nervous about the response to Whitaker, because you're right. Whitaker is so nakedly unqualified for this position, inappropriate for this position, because he's already publicly stated that he doesn't think the investigation has any merit. Right. He's already gone against the even the Department of Justice, which concedes that Russia interfered, whether it made it affected the outcome. It doesn't matter. He's even disputed that publicly. So this guy has there's a taint on him in terms of whether or not he's conflicted. And so it's possible that Whitaker may not survive. You had the Solicitor General, one of Donald Trump's picks for Solicitor General, Conway, I think it was, who is obviously, and this other guy, basically a centrist Solicitor General type of a guy who goes up for the Supreme Court, Neil Katyal, wrote something saying that Whitaker is his assent there is unconstitutional, which is, I have some problems with that theory because of what the implications of it. But nevertheless, there's an indication that people may challenge legally anything Whitaker does. A, and B, here's the other thing. Mueller has a bunch of sealed indictments. I don't know how many. But those indictments are sitting in a court with a judge right now. Whitaker has no ability to have those indictments quashed. They just get unsealed by the judge or they don't. And so these protests, I think, are important to basically say to Donald Trump, who now I think is we are, for a while he was cosplaying Il Duce, Mussolini. But I think, like, well, from a practical matter, we're starting to head into there.
Oh, man.
Go ahead.
Especially heavy. I mean, in addition to what he's doing constitutionally, what he's doing in terms of the media, the press. Did you see what he did with Abby Phillip this morning from CNN?
We played it just before you came on. You're stupid. Yeah, I mean, this stuff is off the hook.
Dangerous.
Yeah, it's super dangerous. And so there's, these protests are I think, are really important. And the idea that, frankly, anybody who says that these are in support of Jeff Sessions are the only people who think they're in support of Jeff Sessions.
I would agree to that. I would agree to that. It's just, you have to come up for air from the Twitterverse. Twitter is not real life. It has real life implications,
right?
But it certainly is not representative of real life.
Absolutely. Well, Ben, I guess we'll see where this heads in the next couple of days. I mean, who knows? Maybe by the time we post this podcast, Donald
Whitaker will be out.
Whitaker will be out, or Donald Jr. will be indicted.
Indicted, yeah.
Or
that would be a wonderful bow to wrap around this week, wouldn't it? I mean, not to wish ill on anybody, but if anybody deserves
now wait a second.
it would be Trump.
I'm okay in wishing ill on people. I have no problem with that. I got to tell you.
Okay. Right.
I'm not going to drag you down to my level, but and we should say that indictment could already exist. It's just a question of it being unsealed. And so who knows? But Ben, always a pleasure, folks. Make sure you check out Ben's new project. What's the website again?
BuildingTheNorthStar.com.
BuildingTheNorthStar.com. Ben Dixon, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, folks. We're going to take a break, and then we will go to Judy Gold. This guy, Whitaker, and we're going to talk in the next couple of weeks. We're going to have some very interesting interviews lined up. One is with this guy, John Sides, who's a political scientist. I can't remember the name of the book, but they did extensive research, he and two others, and I can't remember the co-authors either. But all this information will be given to you on a need-to-know basis, folks. They did research which basically showed that the election of Barack Obama had crazy impact on people's racial views, and that race during the Obama administration became a tribal signal, that things became racified, if you will, in ways that they had never done before. But we will talk to them. I know you're skeptical of this, Jamie, but
no, I was just going to say, were things not racified in this country already?
Well, certain things were.
We were founded on white supremacy and settler colonialism.
I think you will find that these political scientists are well aware of that. They actually have a term. I think it was OFR, old-fashioned racism. They actually delineate things. Apparently, and this is going to be really surprising. This is their data. They found that. And it was also true of Democrats too during the 2008 primary, that there were some there was a lot more racist Democrats. They found that Obama actually helped the left in terms of race and made them more sort of strident anti-racist in some ways. And I don't want to take all the thunder from this. We'll listen to the guy, but they found that, to a surprising degree, policies that we, I think, sitting in this room, assumed that most people saw through racial terms was not the case until Obama. And we'll hear more about that. And the other thing that is coming up is, I think I've mentioned that We have a guy who's written the book on Mike Pence. And one of the things that he had said when we were on a panel at Politicon is that most of the people in the administration are Pence people. And I have a feeling that Whitaker is one of those people. He is full-on God Squad, who has said basically that U.S. law, this is a former U.S. attorney, that U.S. law is should be informed by the Bible.
You know, I just want to say with regard to Pence and these God Squad people, I spend a good amount of time trying to explain Iran a little bit because there's so much fear-mongering and nonsense about Iran, and obviously you can do deals with them and so on. But conversely, they have a limited democracy that operates in the context of a very repressive theocracy. And you can really do, when you read about people like Pence, I mean, it's very analogous of what they're trying to do in the United States. Like, there still would be a lot of these like external electoral trappings if some type of like Supreme Guardian Council cleared people's Christianity beforehand. I mean, I'm only barely exaggerating. Look at Iran and look at how they actually do have an Islamic democracy that is radically constrained because of religion and socially repressive for precisely what these people want to do in the United States.
Yeah, I think most of their obsession with Sharia law is really jealousy.
Yeah, 100%. And if you
but they get
competition.
No, literally.
They get to. That's my impression of conservatives.
That's perfect. No, it's exact. I mean, and that's an actual model there.
Speaking of that, let's play this clip of Donald Trump talking about. He's being questioned about Whitaker, and so Whitaker. There is a statute that says that in the absence of a secretary cabinet, a cabinet secretary, or someone at that level like the attorney general, that you can put in a temporary acting person who is not confirmed by the Senate. But people are concerned about this because there's also the opportunity to put people in who have been confirmed by the Senate for other positions, other cabinet secretary level positions, and they could shift over. So there are questions about Whitaker, and of course the questions really have to do with Whitaker not being particularly vetted. He was the chief of staff for Jeff Sessions. He was a former U.S. attorney, however, which is worth something. And but the guy has gone on television for the past couple of years and said, like, there shouldn't be, that the investigation is unwarranted and whatnot. And he also said, in defense of, and we'll play this a little bit later, in defense of Jeff Sessions, that you can't have the appearance of conflict. And that's why Sessions recused himself. But here is Donald Trump, extremely defensive about Whitaker, reaching for just about anything he could.
Matt Whitaker has not gone through a Senate process.
Yeah, but neither has Mueller. Excuse me.
Pause it for 1 second. So the question is, Whitaker hasn't gone through a Senate process to be in the leadership of the Department of Justice. And so Donald Trump basically does the I'm rubber, you're glue. What you say to me, what you say bounces off of me and sticks to you.
Yeah, but neither has Mueller. Excuse me. You talk about the Senate process. Mueller is doing a report. He hasn't gone through the Senate process. So you're saying Whitaker hasn't, but Whitaker has. Wait a minute. Because he was a really distinguished U.S. attorney in Iowa, and he was approved by everybody, because to be U.S. attorney, that's top of the line. He was a highly respected, in fact, I'll tell you, the ambassador to China, as you know, Terry Branstad, who used to be the governor of Iowa, he told me that what a great choice that is, that he is one of the most respected people in all of Iowa. And that was coming from Terry Branstad, who was the governor. Look, Mueller, a big complaint people have, Mueller was not Senate confirmed. So he's doing a report. He wasn't Senate confirmed. Whitaker was Senate confirmed, and now he doesn't need this, but he was Senate confirmed at the highest level when he was the U.S. Attorney from Iowa.
You know,
but
Guys.
Mueller was not Senate confirmed. Why didn't they get him Senate confirmed? He should have been Senate confirmed. Because of all the conflicts, they didn't want to bring him before the Senate because he's very conflicted.
I'm the one that cares
because of
about
those
Senate.
conflicts, they didn't want to bring him before the Senate. But don't tell me about Whitaker. Don't tell me about Whitaker because Mueller was not Senate confirmed.
Guys,
Okay.
let's confirm this at the highest level. What do you say we don't just do a regular confirm on this? I'm
Now-
going highest level confirm for Whitaker.
Let's just, before we even address how Donald Trump is so uptight about this, we should tell you that Mueller was a U.S. attorney. So he was confirmed by the Senate for U.S. attorney.
Not at the highest level.
Mueller was also the FBI director. He was confirmed by the Senate as FBI director. Mueller also was the FBI director beyond his term. And the Senate had to basically reconfirm him or give him a waiver to be that guy.
They wanted to see if he could do better. They
But-
did it as a favor to his wife.
Being an independent counsel beyond being confirmed as which is a U.S. senator, special counsel, I mean U.S. attorney essentially, which he had been confirmed for, is what he needs to be confirmed for. He was confirmed exactly for the position that he has.
You know what I really resent about Donald Trump?
But that, of course, is irrelevant anyways.
Well, not if you were confirmed at the highest level. Maybe you'd think that
By
was
all the
relevant.
best people.
And Terry
He
Branstad didn't say great things about you either.
He's one of
frankly,
the most
Sam.
respected people in all of Iowa, okay?
Yeah, I really resent the fact that, first of all, that Robert Mueller and James Comey are subject to conversation, and secondly, that it's all relative to hey, Donald Trump's criminal machinations are running up against these guys versus, hey, they built careers on terrorizing Muslims,
Right.
and entrapping people and expanding the national security state. So that's another thing that I resent Donald Trump for.
Yeah, I mean, all this is true about Mueller, but you can hold both of those.
Well, I do
notions
every
in-
day.
Right.
I mean, it's sort of it's very analogous to the press. There's all sorts of problems with quote unquote mainstream corporate media, sensationalist, profit motive, corporate driven. And Donald Trump is an authoritarian who's trying to destroy media. And so we need to be aligned with Jim Acosta. I mean, we're gonna have to hold a lot of cognitive dissonance in today's world.
I would also say that the percentage of people who have that opinion of the media and express it on shows like ours, and I obviously I have a lot of issues with the corporate media and have had for 15 years.
No, you don't.
All of those people, us included, use the resources from that media
of course.
every single
Well,
day.
that's another really important distinction, right? No,
Right?
that's a huge.
How can you criticize corporate media when you're quoting the AP all the time? That's where you get all your news because you're not a reporting outfit.
Well, I mean, very simply.
I mean,
by doing that,
but
and
I'm
also, especially with the New York Times. I mean, I have problems with some New York Times reporting, particularly in the Middle East, with how they frame stories. But I'm also able to distinguish, Maggie
that's what I'm saying.
Haberman is
People
trash.
do this all the time.
Yeah, people do this all the time, and also it's
people
easy
are able to
just-
hold both of these
Yeah.
things in the same time.
I think that
so criticizing people for going out and protesting when Sessions gets fired, because that necessarily means they're supportive of Jeff Sessions, this horribly racist, corrupt, in my opinion, DOJ head, is absurd.
Although
we can
I
hold
do-
two notions at the same time.
Well, we should, and I think we usually do. I actually think there's a real diminishing capacity for most people to hold two opposing notions in their head at the same time, which is a bigger problem.
Well,
yeah, that's true.
Humanity is devolving. All right, let's take a quick break.
That's right.
When we come
Now
back,
let's get to Judy. Boom.
Speaking of devolving, let's
Devolution with Judy Gold.
Here we go. I got to warn you, folks. I think she might have a cold. All right, we'll be right back. All right, folks. It appears that I hope she's okay, but we cannot reach Judy Gold. However, we'll still play her opening because it's fun and it reminds me of Judy.
Level-headed.
Fuck you!
Calm, cool, and collected.
I have a bigger penis than him.
Judy Gold is on the line to keep us all connected.
What the fuck is the matter with him?
A steady hand to guide us. She'll keep us calm and carry on.
No fucking way!
Too bad Jimmy Reefer Cuck didn't find her worthy of a song. Well, Judy Gold.
And he's such a fucking penis head liar. I'm not kidding.
She's calling it 5.
That's the president of the United States. That's the president. What the fuck? Like this guy, I fucking, how did this happen?
There you go. I just got a text from her. She's gonna call us in 5. I was a little bit late in calling her, so she's gonna yell at me.
Playing that code.
Let's do.
Did you see Mueller, Sam? He's so fucking good.
You doing Judy Gold?
It's like Robert Mueller. I know everybody says, "Oh, he had the FBI," but you know, he's a fucking leader. You know.
Let's play this clip.
That fat fuck.
Let's play this clip from Donald Trump about. No, let's save that one for Judy. Maybe he didn't know who Whitaker was. Yeah, let's do this one. This and look, Tucker Carlson. Well, we'll talk about Tucker Carlson in a moment. Let's play this clip. This is Sep Gorka, who apparently is drawing lines. But my favorite part of this clip is when Hannity goes off introducing these two guys, and they clearly don't know like what he's talking about. These are all just sort of like, in this business, we have what are known as macros. Okay. So like, for instance, like my macro would be about, Social Security and it being the, most successful thing or whatnot. And, you folks know, zero-sum game, et cetera, et cetera. For Hannity,
Classic.
it's a series of stuff that is old, and these guys and random, and these guys can't even keep up with it. But here's Sean Hannity trying to still harp on the unacceptable tactics of the radical left-wing mob.
And let me say, there was a report on Mediaite tonight, Dr. Gorka, that a CNN anchor apparently is receiving threats. No conservative. We don't want you. You're not a conservative if you're sending threats to people, period. Yeah. No, we have no room for it. No. Now, we have over at Conspiracy TV, MSNBC, they've...
Pause it for 1 second. You should just know that Dr. Blasey Ford has not been able to live in her home since the Kavanaugh hearings because of constant death threats from probably not liberals, probably not feminists, probably not leftists. I don't recall that coming up on Hannity's show, but continue.
At Conspiracy TV, MSNBC, Rachel Maddow is now encouraging people to go out and protest today, part of a MoveOn.org effort. That's, General Betray Us, the same people that, featured elderly women vowing to, private part punch Mitt Romney and burn this mother effer down, and ads comparing Bush to Hitler.
So, these guys are like, wait, what? Wait, I totally missed that. Because Move On is sponsoring these rallies to basically tell Trump you can't fire Mueller. And General Betray Us was when Petraeus basically came back and wanted more troops. I
Jesus,
believe.
you know this better than Bong Bong and Gorka.
Well,
you
of
should
course,
be on.
because I was...
Exactly, Sean.
I mean, this was during the Iraq War. Now, it turned out that General betray us, that's what he did.
So
He gave away secrets to his girlfriend. But the other stuff, I can't even make out what Hannity was saying. These guys are.
It's just verbiage.
I just love the look on Gorka's face, and both of them just like gonna look like I don't know it.
Look at Bongino blinking.
I did catch Maddow though going, "Don't let Tucker Carlson home without feeling like he could get jumped at any moment."
Right, but put a pin on that, remembering about the protest that Move On is doing, and continue.
General betray us, the same people that, featured elderly women vowing to, private part punch Mitt Romney and burn this mother effer down, and
I missed
ads
that.
comparing Bush to
Private
Hitler.
part punch
So
Mitt Romney,
this
or
is the
punch
network
him in the
Tom
private
Brokaw's
part?
proud
No.
of. This person,
punch.
Maddow, claiming she's a news person.
It was a Move
Really?
On campaign. Cock punch.
Well, she's not a news person, Sean. There is a direct line between Jim Acosta's behavior at that press conference and what happened at our friend Tucker's house. These people are repeatedly crossing the line of what is acceptable, whether you're a reporter in the White House or whether you're a demonstrator in D.C. They're undermining, or they're broadening what is called the Overton window, meaning the list of things that are deemed acceptable.
Incidentally, Sean, should I stop calling Christine Blasey Ford and asking if she has Prince Albert in a can? Would this apply?
Let's just briefly touch on this Tucker Carlson thing, because obviously it was I have to say that I agree with Tucker Carlson in this, insofar as he said it wasn't a protest, it was a threat. They weren't protesting anything specific I had said. They weren't asking me to change anything. They weren't protesting a policy or advocating for legislation. They were threatening me and my family and telling me to leave my own neighborhood in the city I grew up in. Now, I do not think it's appropriate to threaten people. However, I think if you listen to what Tucker is saying, I think what would have been appropriate is for folks to go there maybe during the day, not at night, because the night can be threatening. Go during the day, and instead of saying, you and your family should leave or else, they should say things like, you should resign from your television show, or please resign from your television show, or hey, ho, ho, Tucker Carlson should go from his television show.
The year was
or something.
1970. In Germany, a group called the Beiner Meidhof Gang was founded.
But wait a second, but honestly, like the idea that I think Tucker Carlson would disagree with Sean Hannity there. It is okay to protest against a government action. That's what Tucker's saying. And if the protesters had gone and said something concrete, like you platform someone specific, I think that would have been a more appropriate.
I'll be sure to bring that up at the next board meeting of Antifa, of which I am the CEO.
Well, there
Christine
you go.
Blasey Ford, is there a homo there?
I would like to...
homo says what? Ha ha! Dr. Gorka got you again.
I don't think you should threaten people. That's not appropriate form of protest. But like Tucker Carlson says, if you have a specific complaint about what Tucker Carlson is doing, you should raise that. And I would go during the day rather than at night, so it's not as threatening. It's not threatening at all to protest during the day, it seems to me. And so that's what I would do if, according to Tucker.
The Red Army faction didn't just have a cool name. They also did cool things, like kidnap titans of industry.
And there it is, folks. Hold on for 1 second. Hello?
Hello?
Hello, you're live on the air.
Hi, my name is Judy Gold, and
Judy!
I'm a big fan of the Majority Report, and I fucking hate Donald Trump so fucking much. He is the biggest fucking piece of shit. He's got his shit. He's a fucking... I can't fucking believe what he did at that fucking press conference. He is a slime bag, lying, disgusting. He has no friends, not one fucking friend. He's a fucking disgusting excuse for a human being. So I just want to say hi.
How's your week going, Judy?
I cannot. He called April Ryan a loser this morning. A fucking who says that? Who says that? My kids don't even say that.
Trump says
Elisa's
that.
telling me to stop screaming. Elisa's telling me to stop screaming, but she doesn't realize that this is the only place I can go.
This is it. This is why you don't have to yell at home.
Yeah, this is why I don't have to yell at home. That's what Sam says. Oh, by the way, Elisa says, oh, her whole face changed when I said Sam. Isn't that interesting? I don't yell all the time. He's a fucking asshole. He's a fucking asshole. Like, he is gone. What about? It's interesting how the votes are getting smaller. Yeah, because we're counting them. You fucking fat piece of shit. Here's my dream. Okay, this is my dream.
Yeah.
Okay, my dream is that he has a massive stroke, like the guy, and ends up walking and talking like the man he made fun of. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So that's part
Build
one.
that wall.
Okay.
That's pretty good. I mean, that is as far as like sort of an emotional response. The idea of like willing on him a stroke and having him have to sort of perform his therapy in public would be interesting to watch.
Right. Just because he made fun of that disabled reporter and fuck him. Okay, that's part one. Now part two is
right.
A few weeks later. Okay. After he's off the life support system, because God only knows, what. Okay. I go and open my front door, and I look on the floor, and there's my newspaper, and it says in quotes on the top, "The Failing," New York Times, and there's a picture of him in his wheelchair, all, mangled and drooling, and he's in handcuffs, and
right.
His penis is exposed.
Why is
how does that
why
happen?
is his penis exposed?
This is
His
getting
penis
like
is
Abu
exposed.
Ghraib level.
Because he's in a hospital gown, and you can see it, and it's tiny, and
Mushroom shaped.
and it's a little mushroom.
This is a function of the stroke.
And
This is a function
I
of the
want
stroke.
him humiliated.
If I
want
didn't
him
have the
humiliated.
stroke, it would be different.
It's
what?
amazing.
Him trying to explain why his penis is small because of the stroke through his stroke would be amazing.
He would do that. He would say, "Oh, the stroke made my penis smaller. It's part of the medication." But the fact that people can say he did not mock that disabled report. Like, I have Trumpies are like, that didn't happen. It fucking happened. And fuck you, Jim Acosta has more class in a fucking snot coming out of his nose than you have in your entire fucking family.
Now, wait a second. So who in your life is telling you this stuff that he didn't mock that reporter? Who what Trumpista is he?
I had a relative, okay, of mine.
Yeah.
Who is a Trump supporter, who's the only Trump supporter relative of
New
mine.
Jersey.
Say that wasn't true. That was fake. Yes, in New Jersey. Oh my God, how did you know?
So wait a second. So what do you do in that situation? Do you just like pull up a a
Well, now
video?
I can't do anything anymore. Like, I can't.
Have you been told? Is there a restraining
Elisa,
order involved in this?
I need the keys.
Do you remember his?
What?
Do you remember
Is there a
what
restraining order involved in this? Are you not allowed to talk to the?
Well, we're not allowed to talk about politics.
When was that rule set down? Is this in anticipation of Thanksgiving?
After at a family gathering, when the person actually said to me, because I said, "Really? Do you believe in gun control?" Yes, and then, comma, but I think the NRA does some really good things.
Oh boy.
That was it. That was the end.
Do you remember his denial? Because before he did that impression, which that was amazing. He goes, "You should see this guy. I know the guy." Right. And then he does the impression, and then the next day he's just like, "I don't know who the reporter is." He literally prefaced the fucking impression.
What about he said he doesn't know what's his name. The one he just put in Attorney General. He
yeah.
doesn't know him.
Let's the Attorney General. Let's play that clip. Actually, we were going to save that for you.
Thank you. While I cough.
He's also an inventor.
Judy is a little sick. All right, so
Yeah.
let's play this clip. This is Donald
ahead.
Trump trying to pretend that somehow he doesn't know Matt Whitaker, the person he made acting Attorney General. This was Jeff Sessions' chief of staff. And
Right.
really would be almost disturbing if he didn't know who he was. Like, how do you make
Right.
a guy acting Attorney General that you don't know
Yeah,
anything
and
about?
you don't know him.
Right. But here's Donald Trump.
Happens to be on your side.
Here's Donald Trump claiming this.
I didn't speak to Matt Whitaker about it. I don't know Matt Whitaker. Matt Whitaker has a great reputation, and that's what I wanted. I also wanted to do something which, frankly, I could have brought somebody very easily from the outside. I didn't want to do that. When Sessions left, what I did, very simply, is take a man who worked for Sessions.
There you go. You just took a man who
Yeah.
worked for Sessions.
Yeah, that's so true, because Rod Rosenstein doesn't, he has nothing to do with that department.
Right. Why would you want Rod Rosenstein,
Yeah.
who's been acting as basically the acting Attorney General for one of the bigger cases that they've been working on over at the DOJ?
That's a stupid comment.
The dumb comment.
Yeah.
Well,
He's just, you know what? He's so stupid. Like, he does that press conference. Did you see when he got so mad when they kept asking him questions, and he just backed up with a red face and was like a fucking 2-year-old, like fucking 2-year-old getting scolded by their fucking teacher? Okay.
walks away from the podium. Very Mussolini-like.
Yeah. And what about Sarah? Fuckabee fuckface. What about how she's sitting there and he's going, and everyone's so mean to Sarah, and she's sitting there with one eye, on the fucking left side of the room and the other eye on the right side of the room. Like, it's unbelievable. And she's like smiling, like, oh, he likes me. He loves me. It's just disgusting. Then he goes, oh, Mike, you're going to be my vice president? It's like he's such a fucking dickoid. He's just they should have all gotten up and just fucking walked out and left him standing there.
I think
But none of them do that.
bullying a 2 is so not classy. Jim Acosta, he's mean to Sarah Huckabee, who's a 2 every day. It's totally unfair.
Now, Judy Gold, from your perspective as a comedian and satirist, what do you...
Satirist?
Well,
fucking psychoist, yeah.
Do you think they put Jim Acosta in that front row just to create some type of conflict to avoid talking about the Democrats taking over the Congress? I mean, what are the chances they accidentally put Jim Acosta in the front row? This is a guy they hate.
Right. Here's the thing. I don't know how it works and who seats them, but it was interesting that, he was right in his fucking face.
Yep.
CNN was right in his face.
I think that was done by design. I really do think that was sort of a planned moment. I don't know how planned out it was, but the idea
like putting him there and calling on him and being able to, rant his fucking bullshit lies, you know?
Right. I think that's it. We want some conflict here today. This is the way we'll do it. Put Jim Acosta up front,
Right.
and I'll take care of
Yeah,
everything.
let's show him, he's tough. Let's show it.
Yeah, this is not sophisticated stuff. You don't need to be some type of, you don't need to be the desert fox to decide like, oh, I know, we'll just put Costa up there and we'll make a scene out of it.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure everything is planned except for, any sort of intervention with the armed forces. he's like, look at that fuckface and realize he has the nuclear codes. That fuck, I would trust my fucking 17-year-old son with the nuclear codes more than I would trust that fucking asshole.
I would imagine I would imagine just about everybody would, like even people who don't know your son.
But the way he behaves, like it's just like Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh, what a fucking asshole! Screaming, "Oh, did you ever black out? You're a fucking asshole." Your wife looked at you like she's fucking scared of you, and you know he's just a fucking abusive fuck. Like any of those women lied. The woman has 2 front doors. Like, you're a fucking asshole liar. But they all behave like him. And what the fuck happened to Lindsey Graham? What happened to that guy?
Well, he's, maybe he's just always been that guy.
Yeah, he's a horrible, disgusting human being.
Yeah, but before he was, in the beginning, like last year, he was a little bit like,
Don't
oh,
believe
no,
anything I say, Judy. It's all an act. You want a mint julep?
How's your boyfriend, Lindsay? How's he doing?
What? How dare you?
Your boyfriend? How is he?
I'll see you at Club.
You know, your lover, the guy.
That is a low blow, and I will not speak to Judy Gold again until I see her at her show in a month.
On Fire
Okay,
Island.
but the guy who sucks your dick. You know what I'm talking about, the young guy.
No one has ever sucked my dick. Purely a giver, Judy. How dare you?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure I'm sure you don't do anything for anyone else because your hair. You fucking asshole.
Judy, did you really think more of Lindsey Graham ever? I mean, come on. He's so disgusting.
No, but he is. I've always thought he was disgusting. But then he was saying, this Russia we have to protect Mueller. We have to protect. And stop saying Mueller. Okay, his name is Mueller. No one calls him Mueller.
Mueller. You lesbian.
Like they act like, oh yeah, what's his name? Mueller. Like they don't fucking say his name and okay, and this is horrible, but they're probably all high-fiving each other that the notorious RBG fell in her office.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm a little, but okay. I wish her a speedy, full recovery, and we need her. But I'm a little sore that she didn't maybe leave during the Obama era. I can't lie.
Well, of course. I mean, we were saying that.
Of course.
We were saying that
of course.
Contemporaneously.
I know, and I'm saying it contemporaneously now. But they need to court pack and have term limits. They need to.
Yeah, they also need to add more justices to the Supreme Court.
That's the court packing. That's a court packing.
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
Judy, were you hardened?
Worst impression.
Were you?
Fuck you, Judy Gold.
Were you hardened at all by the election results this week?
I was heartened, and I feel like, and it's even better when he's like, no, it was it was very good. He lies about every, I'm telling you, he's the fucking psycho mental patient. But I was heartened, and I'm so glad that they're counting all the fucking votes in Florida. And fuck you, Melania. I'm so sick of people going, oh, Melania really hates him. I don't fucking feel sorry for that bitch.
Thank you.
You know what? You stand by him. You're full of shit.
Thank you.
Anyone who's like, oh, poor Melania, fuck you.
Thank you.
So complicit in this. She's just as bad as he is. I want to tell you about the bullying and the bully and the no bully people. Nice. Shut the fuck up.
This is such a hard cosign.
We are aligned on
Finally, somebody who can say fuck Melania. Finally.
Oh, she's a fucking C.
Besides
Let me tell you something.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck Melania. She's totally complicit. She's awful.
She is. You don't think so?
I think so completely. I've been saying that forever.
Oh, I know. And do you think Barron even knows what he looks like? He's the worst father in the entire world. And fuck you, Ivanka and Jared.
Yes.
And first of all, there's a mass shooting at a synagogue. They're like, please don't come. He fucking goes there with this stupid blue fucking disgusting coat. Do you know what I was noticing? You know how, when someone is president, for those years, you usually have a certain style in clothing, you know?
You mean like
Based on who's
oversized,
president.
ill-fitting Men's Warehouse meets Genevieve's family?
Like, you know, Obama, like Michelle, right? People would do, like, during the Carter administration, it was sort of like, like Laura Ashley, or you know what I mean?
You know what she means, Sam.
Yeah.
But no one puts on fucking long, goddamn, ugly, oversized blue coats and ties that go down to your fucking ankles.
I mean, Judy, really doing a lot of fashion criticism. Is this?
How's Melania doing fashion-wise?
Oh, well, that jacket was great. I don't care. Yeah, you're fucking. What about that fucking? What was that outfit where she looked like, where the hell was she? And she had like a whatchamacallit on, like she looked like an equestrian getting on with a tie. She had a tie and she's so inappropriate.
You know what I remember? What we played this clip a couple of months ago when I was hosting and Sam wasn't here, and it was a Fox News clip where these middle school kids were at some anti-bullying thing, and one of them knocked over a glass of water by accident and clearly was embarrassed. And she did like it was fine, but she was just like, "It is okay, it's just water, don't worry." And they clipped it and they put it out like, look at just humanity in action.
Right.
And what was amazing was like, because during the Obama administration, they went overboard in the other direction, but it would be like every day it would be like, here's Obama comforting a baby. Here's Michelle having a nice interaction with the guy who cleans and this was the one thing they got from this administration was her not like jumping down the kid's neck.
For spilling water.
Yes.
Well, I got to tell you, my mother would have been like, Judith, what the hell is wrong with you? You're a slut. Okay, but, and she loved me.
It was tough love. It's tough love. She
It's
didn't want
okay
you to-
because that. And what about this?
It is okay. It's just
birthright
bone out. It's
citizenship?
okay.
First of all, birthright citizenship, his fucking wife, both of his wives, the 2 out of the 3, they wouldn't be citizens, and neither would the kids, you fucking fat piece of shit. I hate him. I mean...
It doesn't feel like your hate for him dissipated at all since the last time we
No,
talked.
it's actually the point, I now, when I get on stage, by the way, I'll be at the Treehouse in Westport, Connecticut tomorrow if you want to come.
Treehouse in Westport,
so I'm doing a little
Connecticut,
plug
folks.
there. Yeah,
Also,
but
don't forget to
when I
listen
get on
to
stage now,
Just Kill Me
it's
Now.
Not, what?
No, go ahead.
What?
Go ahead. I was just plugging your podcast.
Oh, and I have an album coming out. You can pre-order on November 28th. It comes out on December 7th. What else happened that day? Anyway, so when I get on, it's no longer about but his policies and he's done a couple, no, he is a disgrace. He's a laughing stock. There's no more his policies and my fucking taxes. No more of that shit. There's no excuse. He is unfit for this fucking office. And then he tells them that, the press should respect the office of the presidency. When the fuck is the last time he respected the office of the presidency? What about how he was like, and they were talking about the annexing of Crimea, and he was like, oh, Obama did that. What is wrong? He's so dumb.
Judy, I have a question that will shoot your cortisol levels up really high. I want to hear your response to this, but I want to give you and everybody you're around a pre-warning, okay?
Okay, pre-warning.
All right, Chris Christie was at the White House. Rumor he might be the new AG. Go.
She just died.
Shit, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Is that too much?
Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh, boy.
Are you lying?
Sadly, I'm not.
You're not the one driving, are you, Judy?
Yeah, okay. If you're the one driving, I'm lying.
Elisa's driving. Elisa's driving. But can I just tell you something? First of all, he put Jared's father in jail. I can't imagine he's going to be attorney. Yeah, Chris Christie. I'm just telling Elisa. You know? You knew and you didn't tell me.
That would be
White House.
a really good way to cuck Jared, though, don't you think?
They were at a meeting just a couple days ago on prison reform, and Chris Christie and Jared were in the same room. So it's not like these people. Look, what are one of the things that Jared's dad was in jail for? You remember what Jared's dad did to his sister? Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, he did that whole video about with the prostitute, right?
He set up her husband with a hooker to blackmail his own brother-in-law for his sister, or to his sister. That's who these people are.
Stupid fucking pieces of shit. Let me tell you something. See. Both. So fat fuck Chrissy is in fuckface's office, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And they're eating, and some fat fuck like Kentucky Fried Chicken, okay? And they're eating and all of a sudden, fuckface, orange fuckface has a massive stroke, and fat fuck gets up, right? And tries to pick him up, and he has a heart attack, okay, from trying to pick up orange fuckface off the ground. And then Mike Pence comes running in like, oh, my God, what's going on? Mother. Okay, that's my fantasy.
Wait, can you do Mike Pence again, please?
Wait a second. You have a rich and detailed fantasy life.
I love Mike Pence.
Aren't they horrible?
Oh, no, mother.
So he comes in, he says mother, but doesn't it, I mean, is it end there? Does he go?
Well, he gets on the phone on the desk. I'm working this out as we go along. And he calls the security or whatever. And they come in very slowly because they all fucking hate him, And then he called, Mother, I'm so upset, Mother. And tries. All right, it's getting boring as I go on.
Well, wait. I was just wondering, like maybe at this point, Mike Pence, I feel like then just sort of like a stage weight drops on his head from the rafters or something like that.
Oh, that's a good idea. I like that.
It's getting slapstick at this point. Where
Barron shoots him with a crossbow, and Barron saves all of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we have a parade for Barron.
And then, of
Barron
course,
comes in and is like, yay, ding. He comes in and sings, ding, dong, the witch is dead, the witch kid, and then,
And then Tiffany comes from behind
Tiffany
the
comes
curtains
out
and takes her seat at the at the president's desk.
Tiffany
in the
says,
Oval
"Now
Office.
let's get to business."
And we've got a lot of work
We have
to
a lot
clean
of
up
work
this
to
country.
do after we get rid of my sister.
Well,
and then Jared and Ivanka are fed to piranhas.
Judy, I think this has been cathartic for people.
I hope so. I mean, I
So wait, so where now you don't feel well? Where, Jesus, where are you performing this week? You're at Westport, Connecticut.
I'm at the Treehouse in Westport, Connecticut on Saturday night.
Okay.
Next Thursday is my birthday, the 15th.
What? Next Thursday is your birthday?
Yes, it is my birthday next Thursday.
My birthday's in a couple of weeks as well, and I was
When's yours?
I was 3 weeks late. I was supposed to have my birthday like around today.
I want more time to gestate.
I was 3 weeks late.
3 weeks late?
Yeah,
I believe
back
that
at then they did not.
Okay, that's ridiculous.
Right? I was just like,
Well,
I'm hanging out.
The doctor sucked.
Your doctor
Wow.
sucked. Your birth doctor.
I mean,
sucked.
who fucking makes a mistake like almost a month away? Your mother must have been like, what the fuck is going on?
My understanding is they were like trying to drive around New York City on potholes to try and like,
Is that true?
Yeah.
Is that really true?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Wow. That also explains some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, Judy, want to wish you a happy birthday. You are.
Thank you. Thank you. I love you guys.
National treasure. And it feels a little bit like your passion your passionate hatred of Donald Trump has diminished a little bit. It's starting to wane.
No, it hasn't.
I'm
no,
joking.
it hasn't. There's no
Trump
fucking
asks
way.
Barron why
Right.
before he does it, and Barron goes, "It's not personal. It's birthright citizenship."
Exactly. Boom.
Oh, God, what a fucking piece of shit.
All right, so Judy, wait a second. What is the name of your album?
Well, the name of my album, which my publicist just told me was the stupidest idea, is Kill Me Now, because that's the name of my podcast. So he's like, great, Judy. When people Google it, they're going to be like, oh, I didn't get the album, I got the podcast. So now, I guess I have to make a website, Kill Me Now album, instead of, I'm such an idiot.
All right, Kill Me Now album. It is.
Yeah.
People will check it out.
Well, not yet. It'll be 11/28, November 28th, pre-order.
That's my birthday.
But, yeah, that's it. Yeah, listen, gesund.
All right. Well, Judy, thank you so much. Love you. Hope you feel
All
better.
right, good Shabbos. Love you.
Bye. All right, folks. We're going to head into the fun half of the program wherein, you know what? We should do this. Ladies and gentlemen, I promised a television host, a well-esteemed newsman, that I would deal with a problem that we have here now. You should know, here at the Majority Report, we believe in free speech. That's why we allow Judy to come on and talk about such things.
I'm assuming my Dave Rubin clip will be restored shortly because I was deplatformed and my speech was violated.
We are. That is still going through an administrative procedure. But it has come to my attention that let's go with the original exchange, shall we, Matt? That Matt Leck, super producer here at the Majority Report, has been going on Twitter and saying mean things to Boris Epstein, who is the esteemed commentator for Sinclair local-owned media. So someone writes back to Boris Epstein after Boris says something. You do realize the First Amendment does not guarantee you the right to question Donald Trump or any president on the White House grounds, right? I realize it's lucrative to paint yourself as a martyr, but this is a misleading application of the Constitution. This is a response to Jim Acosta. And then someone responds, Kendall Bill, Russian guy weighs in. Now, Boris, of course, was born in Russia, but is an immigrant to this country, immigrant, I should say, tolerant left, using my nationality against me. We came here legally when I was 11, and I've been a proud American citizen for almost 20 years.
Nice try.
Nice try.
We did this in the Orthodox way.
Wait a second.
He's super young.
Yeah, but wait, he's been here for 20 years. He still has a pretty thick accent, doesn't he?
We run.
I'm trying best.
I'm trying best. My family came, run criminal rackets, Brighton Beach, like you're supposed to do.
Okay, so
he's 3 years older than me. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
He's an 80s kid.
And so
Michael J. Fox was the man of our time.
It is inaccurate to call him a Russian guy. He is American, obviously of Russian heritage.
I can admit that's a bit xenophobic.
It is a bit xenophobic. However,
my family came here and did something for this country.
It came to my attention that Matt Leck responded with, quote, not sending their best. Which, of course, is a quote of the President of the United States. And one of the complaints that the President has had, that we have immigrants coming and we're not getting the best, cream of the crop, implying that Boris is subpar in some way. Now, it's arguable. It's definitely arguable. I mean, but Boris responded with this. That's funny, Matt. Now, when you have any modicum of achievement, instead of just being a snarky nobody on Twitter, get back to me. Now, for someone who is so sensitive about being called Russian or so sensitive about not sending the best. This is sort of like it seems to me to be an inappropriate attack, right? Like, that Matt, you're achieved. You've
literary hangover is growing at a just record pace.
Your literary hangover.
You fucking 3 blunts an afternoon, bro.
You are the producer of a 5-time award-winning podcast.
It's true.
And you have a degree, don't you?
A couple of them.
A couple of education degrees, probably more than Boris.
Probably 2 undergrad and a master's.
I learned what I do from School of Life.
I also achieved a ratio here on this. If you look at the ratio there, it's 57 replies to 35 likes for Boris.
That's pretty good.
I got the ratio.
I got the same number of. I got about 7 followers out of it. That's the same as the amount of retweets that this has gotten.
So there you go, Boris Epstein. Now, what's really stunning to me is that here Boris is on how many stations across the country? 30 television stations. Guy's on television. Look at how many followers he has.
He also was an advisor to the President of the United States.
He has 33,000 followers.
Yeah, not very impressive.
That's not very much.
That's less than Mindy.
We call
it's
him
less than Mindy.
For a guy we call
Mindy's a heavy hitter, though. So.
That's not very much for a guy we call Boris Must Run Epstein.
Exactly. I mean, here's the thing. He's forced on people in some ways. I mean, this is like, he's
he's a literal corporate plant.
But he's an electrifying presence on television.
Well, I mean,
no one reads a prompter better than that guy.
He's like an accoster in a way, right? I mean, honestly, like he is, he's force fed onto people. He has been talk about affirmative action.
He comes to this country.
This is like they need to fill a quota of one Boris Epstein. That's basically it.
Doesn't say a lot for how good competition is working in the corporate media marketplace
I would
these days.
say very strange. Like they honestly can't find somebody more suited for television than Boris. I wonder what that deal is. Wonder like why they had to take Boris.
President Trump will continue diplomacy unconventional. Liberals will react, but the success will be in the puddings.
Now,
that we see.
You're not making fun of him for being Russian. You're making fun of him for having an unintelligible accent and being a television.
Maybe a little flat-footed on television.
Yeah.
Is where my material is coming from. As an example, I work regularly on my show with almost certain Russian spy, Alyona Minkovski, so I have no beef towards Russians.
Right. Who's out? And more importantly, what this means for the American people.
Exactly.
So, now that your tweet has been highlighted on this program, I wonder if that constitutes a modicum of achievement in his mind, and maybe you should get back to him.
I know. I'm going to try to get back to him fairly often and see just when is the time I should have gotten in his eyes.
I mean, a modicum of achievement.
Shouldn't be that much.
How much would you need for a modicum?
Like, I actually consider this getting retweeted by him to be an achievement.
Yeah. That in and of itself. All right, folks, we're going to take
define success on different terms, Boris.
I was going to say.
You should smoke a J and read
modicum
a book.
of achievement feels like what his, it's going to be on his tombstone at this point.
There were many modicums, I can tell you.
How did this guy get to be special, a special advisor to the president?
My father sold Donald Trump a medallion
a
for
special
the cap.
assistant to President Trump. And how do you lose that job so quickly?
The cartel I was representing fell apart on further inspection.
It was appearance of impropriety.
Appearance of prieties. But now I'm on Sinclair. Most importantly, what happens for the American people? Suburb vote change. But suburb vote go back. President Trump is going to continue to tell it as is.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. Head into the fun half. 646-257-3920 is the number. We'll be right back after this. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude, you want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Grandpa.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
Do.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up. Ooh. Wow.
Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me...
Hey, shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
We are back. Sam Seder, the Majority Report. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go right to the phones. Calling from a 210 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good afternoon, Sam. This is John from San Antonio.
John from San Antonio. So things have changed over the past couple of days, John.
Yeah, for the better. It's been excellent. I mentioned twice on the air on election night that one of the biggest factors of the night in the House was that the Democrats were expanding their electoral base because of their winning seats in urban and suburban areas where Republicans used to win. The greatest example of that are the biggest upsets of the night in Oklahoma's 5th District, which encompasses all of Oklahoma City. Democrat Kendra Horn pulled off the biggest upset of the night when she defeated Republican incumbent Steve Russell. Horn was down by double digits in all 6 polls conducted in this race, and Horn only had a 14.3 chance of winning according to 538's classic mode. In New York's 11th District, which covers all of Staten Island,
Right.
which constitutes about 2/3 and 1/3 of southern Brooklyn, Democrat Max Rose actually won Staten Island by 1 point and won Brooklyn by 20 points. He defeated Republican incumbent Dan Donovan. Rose only had a 23.7 chance of winning in 538's classic mode. In South Carolina's 1st District, which encompasses Charleston and North Charleston, is the largest population center in the state, Democrat Joe Cunningham beat Republican Katie Arrington. Cunningham's victory happened because he won Charleston County by 14 points. Those are the biggest upsets by the predicted but the predicted toss-up seats that the Democrats won in urban and suburban areas propelled them to victory. on Tuesday. I don't want to overstate the fact that working class people are moving towards Republicans. Because if you look at the exit polls from Tuesday, less affluent voters still support Democrats by the largest margins. But as you evaluate each higher earning demographic, Republican gain voters. But Republicans are definitely closing gaps among less affluent voters because of cultural issues that dominate the South, the interior West, with the exception of Colorado, and to a lesser extent the Midwest. In the midterms exit polls, college graduates who constitute 41% of the voters voted for Democrats 59 to 41%, while non-college graduates, which comprise 59% of the vote, split their votes equally, 49-49. Also, if you look at the trends over a 24-year period, you see almost a complete reversal of college graduates who supported Republicans to their current support for Democrats. In 1994, college graduates supported Republicans was at 39%, 32% identified as independent, and 27% identified as Democrats. In 2017, 38% identify as independent, 35 as Democrat, and only 24 as Republican, and post-grad numbers are even better for Democrats. And these college grads are mostly living in urban and suburban areas and are expanding the Democratic map.
Isn't that sort of like what we're seeing, is that really we're seeing a rural sort of urban divide, like to the extent that there was overperformance here. It was Democrats overperformed in a lot of instances in terms of like the numbers they thought they had to hit, but Republicans in certain instances also overperformed, particularly in terms of like rural areas. Like, isn't that becoming the divide, which also I would imagine is also racial on some level, but we're talking about rural versus urban?
Yeah, I mean there was a big polling difference also in Indiana and Missouri Senate races, in the Ohio Senate race, and also in the governor's race. I mean, Sherrod Brown still won, obviously, but I mean the polling error was about 6 points, and it was very similar to what happened in the Midwest in the 2016 presidential election. And so I think that the pollsters are still undersampling rural areas in those states, where Republicans are pretty dominant. And so that's something that, is pretty interesting. So one question I have is how much energy, I mean, obviously you can't pass anything without the Senate. So how are Democrats actually going to solve that problem, in your opinion? How is that going to change? I mean, the map actually, it looks okay, except that, Doug Jones is going to have a hard time holding his seat in 2020. Right. I mean, you got, like you were talking about earlier, Cory Gardner, Susan Collins, and there's a race in Arizona, there's a race in North Carolina, Iowa, Georgia, Texas. I mean, all of those are possibly flippable districts.
Right. Beto may end up running against Cornyn. I mean, those are all, yes, you've listed them in terms of where the opportunity lies. I don't know if the, answer is programmatic. I think the Democrats should keep moving in the direction they're moving in. I think like Gillum and Abrams gives you a sense of where you should be headed in the South, right? Like you need to run on, I think, a unabashed progressive platform. You obviously need a very compelling candidate. And I think, what Ben Dixon was saying in terms of like you've got to get resources to the grassroots and particularly people of color, and organize them and bring them out. I mean, that to me seems like the biggest, the most important task. I don't know. I mean, what Democrats can do from now and then, I think, is like get a couple of big signature bills, right? And I don't think we're going to see them pass Medicare for all in the House, but that's what in my opinion, they should do. They should pass Medicare for all in the House, and they should keep passing it. They should pick 3 or 4 major programs. I think we all have a sense of what they would be. Free college or maybe debt forgiveness,
PAYGO,
and Medicaid for all, the Voting Rights Act, fixed Section 5, and then just keep re-voting on them.
Can we also add
like the
Puerto
Republicans
Rican
did that.
and DC statehood, please?
Right, and Republicans did this with repealing Obamacare. They did it 57 times, and the difference in this instance, if we were to do the same with 3 or 4 different bills, it seems to me the Democrats were to do that, is that you wouldn't have. It's not like you need to come up with. You're already offering something proactive that the Republicans in the Senate would be voting against, and you start to pick out wedge issues, that would hurt Cory Gardner, let's say, in Colorado, that would impact Susan Collins in Maine, right? You send maybe a bill to protect a choice, and you send it to the Senate, and you make, Collins vote for it, and you make Murkowski vote for it. I think that's the key, right? If you want to help the Senate, if you want to help take back the Senate, you look for wedge issues for those specific senators. So, reestablishing the Voting Rights Act is going to make a big difference to people in North Carolina, in Georgia, in Texas. That's going to bring out your base. So that's hopefully the way they'll be thinking. But appreciate the call, John.
Yeah, good point.
Thanks,
All
man.
right, thank you, Sam.
Bye.
You say a lot of stupid things, Sam. I've seen you. Matt, I'm not a big fan of yours either.
Let's talk.
Frankly, you want to know the truth in a certain sense.
Let's talk a little bit about Matt Whitaker. This guy is he should be recusing himself. I don't know that he should have ever been appointed. Of course not. But by his own measure, he should be recusing himself. Here he is on. This is him. Let's see. Where he says, this is Ari Melber covering this on Matt Whitaker on the radio, saying that he thinks the Russian interference story has been proven false. Now, look, whether you think the Russian interference materially impacted the election or not, there is no one within or without our government who disputes the fact that the Russians interfered in the election. Sometimes it's material, sometimes it's not. This is not like, you don't need to see a result to have attempted to do something. But here is Matt Whitaker, the guy who is overseeing the investigation as to whether or not there was collusion involving this interference on a radio program. Here it is.
Here's this audio that's been unearthed of Whitaker, this is Trump's new guy, denying that the Russians interfered with the U.S. election.
The left is trying to sow this theory that essentially Russians interfered with the U.S. election, which has been proven false. They did not have any impact in the election, and that has been very clear from the Obama administration.
So there he is, indicating one conflict of interest he would have in terms of he has already prejudged an investigation that is still ongoing. Here is Whitaker in several 2018 news clips describing how Trump might fight against Mueller and Rosenstein by cutting off funding. This, of course, is problematic insofar as it indicates a certain predisposition towards the investigation.
The Department of Justice is not going to be extorted. We're going to do what's required by the rule of law.
I think what ultimately the president's going to start doing is putting pressure on Rod Rosenstein, who is in charge of this investigation.
The indictment alleges that the Russian conspirators want to promote discord in the United States and undermine public confidence in democracy. We must not allow them to succeed.
Well, I could see a scenario where Jeff Sessions is replaced with a recess appointment, and that Attorney General doesn't fire Bob Mueller, but he just reduces his budget so low that his investigation grinds to almost a halt.
Yeah, so there you have Whitaker before he was named chief of staff to Jeff Sessions, basically outlining how you'd go about closing down the Mueller investigation without actually closing down the Mueller investigation.
Just a thought experiment.
Yeah, just a thought experiment. But here's the problem. Based upon a standard that Whitaker laid down himself in defense of Jeff Sessions' recusal, Whitaker should recuse himself as well. Here he is. I think he was on the radio. Or no, this is, on the radio. And maybe he was talking to the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust. Here he is.
The reason he recused himself is not because there's anything for him to hide as it relates to the Trump campaign and ties to Russia. As a lawyer, if there is an appearance of impropriety, and as soon as the, sort of the outrage from the left occurred, he knew as a lawyer that that is an appearance of impropriety because there are people suggesting that he did something wrong. So he has to, it's a conflict. He has to recuse.
There you go. There's an appearance of impropriety. Well, so I think the left, in speaking out, has basically fulfilled Matt Whitaker's own standard for what would constitute a reason to recuse yourself. And boom. Thank you, Matt Whitaker. That's the Whitaker standard.
It's no problem. And also, if you have an invention that has not found a funding source yet, get in touch.
I missed that video.
That was
amazing. I did not see that.
He was talking about something totally different.
We did like a 10-minute segment on it on Thursday. It was so awesome. This will help you get into a hot tub if you're injured. Also, the Russia investigation is total bullshit. See you in the White House.
Now, putting aside the fact that Whitaker, by his own standards, Matt Whitaker, this is the acting attorney general now, former chief of staff of Jeff Sessions, putting aside the fact that by the Whitaker standard, which he expressed in explaining why Jeff Sessions had to recuse himself, according to the Whitaker standard, Whitaker should recuse himself. And he laid out plans on how one would stifle the Mueller investigation without actually ending it. Here's the part that also should scare you a little bit. And this is what makes me believe this guy is a Mike Pence hire. This came out from the People for the American Way. Matt Whitaker was at a conservative forum in April 2014. He was a candidate for a Republican U.S. Senate nomination in Iowa. He also ended up working on Sam Clovis's, I think, campaign. Clovis was had to leave because of his Russia connections, apparently. But so this video was saved by People for the American Way. And here is Matt Whitaker, your new acting attorney general, talking about maybe we should have a little bit more religion involved in what we do.
Well, as someone that's interacted with the federal judiciary a time or two, I will tell you that I have a unique perspective on federal judges. And, while I agree, I want to understand their judicial philosophy and whether they understand natural law and natural rights, and then the founding documents and how they fit together. I don't think that gets us far enough because natural law oftentimes is used from the eye of the beholder, if you will. And what I'd like to see is things like their worldview, what informs them, how have they lived their lives, are they people of faith, do they have a biblical view of justice, which I think is very important because we all know that our government.
Levitical or New Testament?
I'm a New Testament, and what I know is as long as they have that worldview, that they'll be a good judge. And if they have a secular worldview where this is all we have here on earth, then I'm going to be very concerned about how they judge.
That guy is fucking awesome. Not only does he look like a bouncer in the fucking meatpacking district, he believes in God and shit. That's a big league justice.
I mean,
I bet you hated Juantha.
The moderator tried to point out sort of the absurdity of what he was saying by suggesting, you've got to be clear on which Bible you're talking about.
I'm New Testament.
I think we're talking about the Bible that non-freak people read.
He could have said, are you talking about the Quran? I mean, which
yeah, sure, Samantha. We're talking about the Quran, sure. Would you like to open a falafel stand? Come on, get serious.
Your new
fucking
acting attorney general, ladies and gentlemen, still arguable as to he's certainly less qualified than Jeff Sessions, but maybe he's slightly less racist as long as you're a Christian. But
well,
I
don't
would
know
be
about that.
surprised if that was the case.
We just need to get off the Democratic plantation.
There you go.
Me and my fellow superhero Kanye, we're working on it. Because there's buildings don't have 13 floors. That's divine law. Fucking A.
Brittany's boyfriend. I wanted to let Brittany's boyfriend.
That is a good poll right there.
I wanted to let all my MAGA friends who listen to the Majority Report that we vote by secret ballots. Therefore, the leverage social women possesses only goes so far, if you know what I mean.
That's exactly right. I didn't want to be mean to Brittany and make her an incel, but it did occur to me that the guy could be like, oh, yeah, you're totally right about that. We shouldn't destroy the environment or torture immigrant kids. And
wait, what are you talking about?
You don't remember this call?
No.
Brittany called in during election night, and first she accosted me for making incels because I have high standards of callers.
Right.
And then she said that basically she's got like a MAGA boyfriend, and she thinks that girls can convert these guys.
Right.
Sad.
A Square, Sam, Mike, Jamie, Matt, Brandon, thanks for holding it down. Thanks for holding it down these 2 very long years. It was more than a wave. Beto flipped seats, and some areas in the South are slowly turning. But the biggest lesson is organizing. Dems put effort and money in Georgia. Dixon downplayed this. He didn't downplay it. I thought he made a point of it. But Cobb is historically one of the most racist counties in Georgia. Oprah went there in the 90s, and no one shy of letting her know that they thought of black votes. Yes, the theocracy is ready to pounce after Trump regime, but I can only handle one big crazy at a time. Oh, Mike, good psychoanalysis. Trump enamored of Whitaker, just a younger, polished version of that Trump security guard.
Right. That was what I said. Because he looks like he thinks the AG position is like his personal bodyguard from criminal
and so he actually hired a guy who looks like that.
That's what I was thinking.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. He's bald.
He's big. It makes me feel comfortable. He looks like he beat some Jewish kid outside of a meatpacking club once.
I think, this guy's. He's gonna protect me because he's bald. Oh God!
That's so funny. But
yeah, it's true. I think I look at him and he looks like a bodyguard. It's a real strong. Look at you.
Look at that.
Come over here. Let me feel that.
Flowing.
Feel those arms. You got guns, man. Vispa, can I give a shout out to former MR member Matt Binder's podcast, Doomed? Also, I'm already starting my Jeb 2020 campaign support. I think he'll surely take it this time. Left is best. Marks. Pataki on the attacky. The era of the pajama boy is back. Bullprogs. Y'all ready for that Brooks Brothers riot 2.0 going on in Broward County? There's reports that Jack Posbiak and Roger Stone are involved in trying to pull another Brooks Brothers riot type of situation. I hope the Democrats are down there right now.
That's what we need to counter-protest.
Yeah, exactly. A funny little factoid for you. Jimmy Dore show gave $1,000 to Tim Canova, who toyed with the Seth Rich conspiracy. All right. Also, Tulsi, let's not rush to judgment on Assad. Gabbard characterized the Tucker protest as terrorism.
What happened was that Tim Canova got the first computer-to-human virus, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz did that. There's a rot at the DNC. Like, you're voting for fucking
the Democratic
war because
Party,
you're fear-based.
I've heard universally, now maybe this is not true, but I've heard from reporters and whatnot that Debbie Wasserman Schultz was disliked by everyone in the Democratic establishment very early on in the Obama administration, but they were nervous about dumping her from that position. Even the Clinton people don't like her. The idea that the Democrats would save all of their nefarious vote stealing and cheating to help Debbie Wasserman Schultz, but not, let's say, the senator from Florida.
Look, it was hard.
Or the governor of Florida.
Sometimes you just got to make difficult calls.
I'm suspect of that. This is that to me. This is red flaggy all over the place.
I'm sorry, but the idea that you would not have that you would expend your resources in a conspiracy to break the law, to change the outcome of the vote, that you would do it for Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Everybody loves Debbie.
You don't need her seat. But you don't. You're going to change.
I said, listen, Brother Andrew, you'll get another chance. But Debbie, we need her.
You
got to win fair and square.
I don't know how many.
You got to win fair and square, but Debbie's just too important.
How many votes are we talking about in that district, right? I don't know, a couple 100,000 maybe?
Yeah.
The idea that you're going to change 20, 30,000 votes in that type of an election when you could actually change 20, 30,000 votes in the Senate election and win the Senate seat, but you're like, nah, let's do it for
Sam,
let's do it for the 37th House district.
Let me ask you a question, Sam. Is there a reason you have Judy on your show every couple of weeks, right?
That's
You're
true.
like loud, overbearing Jewish broads who say "fuck Trump."
Well, okay.
She's our Judy, baby. Can't let that go. She's in the caucus talking shit. Get everybody bagels and shit.
If anything, that would be.
I told Bill Nelson, I said, you're going to have to win this one fair and square, so I'd recommend putting on some sunblock and leaving the house 20 minutes a day.
If the Democrats are ready to engage in the type of fraudulent elections that like this, and they do it for Debbie Wasserman Schultz, they're more incompetent.
That's what I was going to say. That is a proper knock.
Well, it's like the Clintons.
You
they
cheated.
had people killed, and they've done literally everything, but somehow they couldn't beat Trump.
Right.
Okay. Brilliant.
These guys. Attorney Andrew, the House would do well to pass legislation funding for federally sponsored health care, regardless of whether they pass Medicare for all. That would be a good sell. Do things that make good sound bites. Like, we wanted to tax second homes of health insurance executives to fund your health care, but the Republicans said no. Agreed. Ramos, Mr. 100B, while we're talking about packing the courts and other Democratic measures, we'd love to get your thoughts on the possibility of reforming the legislature. Could you ever see a House of Congress being apportioned and filled by a class-based metric instead of, or in addition to, the current population-based House of Representation, equal representation of the Senate? In effect, the implementation of a House of Commons. What effects might you foresee? Might this have the added benefit of helping to quell income inequality and resulting plutocracy, monopsony issues? I think that level of reform is highly improbable, I would say. I would rather, get rid of electors first, and I would rather see ranked choice voting first, and I would rather see some measure to make the Senate more democratic. I don't know how you would go about doing that.
Yeah, I don't think establishment Democrats are ever going to do that.
I don't think
they wouldn't
any
if they
Democrats
could.
are going to do that. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know who the non-establishment Democrats are.
There aren't very many of them.
What do you call all the people who vote for Democrats or registered as Democrats?
That's not what I'm talking about.
What are
I'm
you
talking about the lawmakers.
Right. I think they would not. But I am talking about the non-establishment Democrats. I also don't know that people would be. I just don't know that there's that much hunger for reform.
Well, I think you're partially right in that people do not have a lot of class consciousness in this country. They're not even aware of all of the barriers that keep working class people from even running in the first place. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez cannot afford to get an apartment in D.C. before she starts drawing her salary as a representative. It's insane. So, like, I would like to spread at least this knowledge and these ideas, but, like, man, the elected Democrats, for the most part, they're not going to do this because it doesn't benefit them.
Yeah, I mean, it's highly unlikely that people who are in a position of power are going to reform things in such a way that they lose that position of power.
Said your mom.
Yeah, or, the people whose money they rely on.
Yeah, but it's also like just their own, they don't want to lose their seats, right? I mean, you rarely see people who are in power vote to give themselves time limits or something like that, or term limits.
Yeah, I mean, they would lose their seats for a few reasons, right? They would lose them to quote unquote commoners, and they would lose them because they would probably be getting less funding from the powers that be.
Indeed. Let's go to the phones. Calling from a 678 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, is this me?
Yes, it is you.
Hi, this is Charles from Georgia. Relax, I'm not going to try to tell a joke again. First off, I agree with your point that the electorate is not going to be there on like a lot of fundamental reforms. I think we can probably sell court packing maybe, but by the time things get bad enough that the people are going to be talking about getting rid of the Senate and stuff like that, I think it'll be too late. Secondly, on the Florida Supreme Court thing, it's basically the dispute was basically the office holders all leave at midnight, but the new governor is sworn in at noon. So Scott's reasoning was, I can, even though I'm technically out of office, I can shove in 3 justices in those 12 hours. And the Supreme Court ruled against him correctly. I hate that I'm such a nerd that I know that.
No, I appreciate the fact that you know that.
Oh, and thirdly, I don't know if Ben Dixon covered this, but just a quick PSA for all the MR listeners in Georgia. You are going to have to come out and vote on December 4th in the runoff race. Whether Stacey gets into the runoff or not, you have to come out on December 4th because we already know that the Secretary of State race is up for grabs, and you have to vote for Democrat John Barrow because Barrow is a blue dog. He voted against the AC a lot when he was in Congress. He's not great, but let's face it, the Republican is going to be infinitely worse. And I would hate to deal with the reality of having someone like Kemp again, but running the 2020 presidential race when we could otherwise maybe be able to take Georgia. So everyone get out and vote on December 4th for John Barrow for Secretary of State. We really need to stop this bullshit Jim Crow stuff that they're trying to pull.
Absolutely. Good point. Everybody's got to go out and vote for that runoff. It's huge. I mean, is there any doubt that Stacey Abrams would be governor of Georgia today if it were not for the fact that she was running against the guy who was in charge of deciding who was going to be allowed to vote?
No, it's an illegitimate stolen election. We need to repeat that again and again and again.
The idea that there isn't a federal law that you cannot, well, and I guess this would have to be a state law, right? I mean, because it's the governorship, but and there should be a law in every state that you simply cannot be a candidate for election and I guess run for. I mean, I don't know how you would do that with the Secretary of State running for a second term, but maybe you just can't have that. It just seems highly inappropriate. You need to have a different system for determining the eligibility of voters that is independent of someone who's running for office. It just seems absurd.
Election administration is making it partisan is really, really bad. I think Wisconsin has a really good system for this, but I don't know if the Wisconsin Republicans fucked with it recently. But we definitely need nonpartisan election administration because we cannot allow this kind of Brian Kemp bullshit to keep on going on.
You sound like a fucking sellout.
Thanks for the call, Charles. Bye-bye.
Corporate
All right,
sellout.
you have a good day.
Corporate sellout, Charles.
So we just mentioned this dilemma that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has. She does not draw a salary until she is inaugurated. Apparently, she's going to have to stay in a hotel the night before she's inaugurated because she cannot afford to get an apartment in Washington, D.C. And you hear these stories, like Chuck Schumer and Dick Durbin used to, like, they were roomies.
Oh, God, what a misery. Jesus, could you imagine our
It does seem
Dick
absurd
Durbin, Chuck
that there
Schumer?
isn't that there isn't some type of like housing allowance for members of Congress. I mean, we should have housing allowance for everybody.
Scott Pruitt got a sort of housing allowance.
In a way, yes, he did. And actually, here's a clip of two folks from Fox News who sort of are just about to suggest something like that, something equally as illegal. Look, she can't use her campaign funds to spend on herself. Otherwise, she would be like Duncan Hunter and would need a Republican district to get reelected after being indicted for spending your campaign money. But here's Fox News people not necessarily being aware that that's not appropriate.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she says that she's having a hard time with something. Do we have it now or should I wait? Okay. Let me know when we have it. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says this: I have 3 months without a salary before I'm a member of Congress. So how do I get an apartment? Those little things are very real. She said this to the New York Times. What do you think of that?
It's very Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez to say this. I think her supporters
Pause
like
it.
it. This is
What
who
the
she is.
fuck does
Comes
that
from-
mean? Like, honestly, like how tone deaf? Like, this is totally like her to say this.
Do they think she's making it up?
No, they just think that like it's just like so.
She's such a downer.
So it's such a core brand proposition for her not to actually be a millionaire.
Yeah, it's really annoying
in
how
the
poor
House.
she insists on being.
How many millionaires are there in the House? Like the percentage of I mean, I know in the Senate, like it's something like 93% of senators are millionaires. In the House, it's probably not nearly as high, but you're talking about wealthy people.
How many are in that studio?
And
maybe
yeah,
not millionaires.
Of course.
Yeah.
There, I mean, it's absurd. You know, the obvious response to this is like, this is a real problem. Because A, it's a real problem in terms of that's what a lot of people in the country experience. In fact, the vast majority of them. Certainly none. I mean, the percentage of people in this country who could afford to maintain an apartment in New York and Washington, D.C. is probably somewhere around 4 to 5%, right? Like maybe. That would, to have the cash, disposable cash to go and just like, and the idea that their response to this is to laugh, like it just expresses how tone deaf they are. But pick it up from her quote.
New York Times. What do you think of that?
It's very Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez to say this. I think her supporters like it. This is who she is. She comes from the Bronx. She's young, youngest member of Congress. It's tough to get an apartment in D.C. I also think she's not alone. She might be the only one talking about it, but a lot of congressmen in Washington, D.C. say, given the cost of living there, it's not exactly the Washington.
Pause it now. One thing I enjoy about this is that I can't stop but look at her diamond earrings as she's talking, as she's saying this.
And she uses the most gringo possible pronunciation of her name.
Right. And, you know, I mispronounce everybody's name. So
nice.
I'm not going to, you know, hold anybody to account for that. But the other part is like, this is a newsflash. Ocasio-Cortez is not a congressman. she's a woman. And so there's other Congress folks,
could be a
people in
Congress,
Congress members of Congress who are going through this. You would
Should
say.
be Congress person.
There you
Should
go.
be Congress person.
Talking about it, but a lot of congressmen in Washington, D.C. say, given the cost of living there, it's not exactly the Washington.
I think that quote was preceded by a year and a half ago. I was tending bar in Brooklyn or something, which is true, by the way.
Well, that's playing to her base, but the fact of the matter is Washington, D.C. and the greater metropolitan area is the most expensive county in the world to live in America now. So I think what she's talking about is all of the money in Washington, all of the wealth in Washington, all of the power, and a little simple person like her from New York can't find a place to live. It is a brilliant political line.
Are you telling
On the
me?
other hand, her resume that Shelby just mentioned about being from the Bronx, it turns out when you read deeper, she had a lot more formative years in Westchester County, New York, which is a little ritzier than the Bronx. I'm from New York. I don't want to throw stones at any boroughs or counties, but her resume doesn't always match up. And some of those shoots during the campaign, she had these multi-$1,000 outfits that could pay a month's rent in Washington, D.C. You're right. Well, I live in Washington. It's very expensive, but she's been all over the map on some of this stuff.
Overall.
What a liar.
And this segment is literally buttoned by a woman whose main contribution to life, to American life, is lying, being like a conduit for lies about WMDs in Iraq. I didn't even know that. Like, we have a segment. First, we're going to trash her and just mock people with low incomes generally, because why not? And then it's like, oh yeah, she's an idiot.
She's playing to her base. By the way, she doesn't keep those dresses she
Also,
makes
it's
for
like
appearance.
playing to your base of Dick Cheney calling you on a phone and
Right.
lying to you about Iraq intelligence, then printing it, and then Dick Cheney going on Meet the Press and saying, well, there's an anonymous source that I just read about in the New York Times, which was himself literally laundering his own lies for an illegal invasion. And that woman is the one in the fucking segment? Jesus Christ, man.
if AOC wanted an apartment, she would have done that stuff too. She made her choice.
She wasn't old enough to sleep with Gaddafi and lie about WMDs.
It is really stunning, their ability to ignore the actual just simple reality of, rather than even saying Washington, D is super expensive, most people, the vast majority of Americans, do not have the ability to put down the extra $1,600 to $3,500, whatever it is going to be for a studio apartment in Washington, D.C. They don't have that available just in their bank account.
Yeah. I mean, what she was saying is true. It is an effective political line. And just saying it with a snarky tone of voice doesn't make it bad.
Right.
Like, that's a good thing that this is her political line, because low-income people are not represented in our government right now at all.
Yeah, they say it in a tone of like, that's not fair that she gets to say she was a bartender last year. That's, what is it, Abraham Lincoln in a cabin now all of a sudden?
She had a good response tweet about it, actually.
He didn't
AOC
chop
did.
down the cherry tree, which is a great political line.
She said there is no reason to be ashamed or embarrassed. Mocking lower incomes is exactly how those who benefit from and promote wealth inequality the most keep everyday people silent about one of the worst threats to American society, that the rich are getting richer and the poor poorer. Boom. And like, I've even dealt with this in my own work, in my own life, like writing about millennials and finances and housing and stuff, like, because I read in the first person a lot. And like in one of my Guardian columns, I'm like, should I not admit that I am a broke millennial who spends more than half of my income on housing? And I was like, no, like that's not my fault. Like there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Well, it also, I don't know if she was raised in Westchester, and I don't know where in Westchester, and I don't know the circumstances.
I mean, you can see the house. It's not a mansion.
But the bottom line is, even still, yeah, I mean, she's a grown woman, and probably her parents need
her
their
dad
money
passed
too.
away.
All right.
That's a big part of her story is having to work to basically help salvage a family home. I think because her father passed away.
Yeah, if you don't know the backstory,
it's absurd.
Like the guy said, if you look at it a bit closer. No, look at it a bit closer.
Yeah, look at exactly. Take their word for it and look at it a bit closer. And incidentally, look at Judith Miller a bit closer.
Unrelated, but I think I almost met her at Politicon.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Brendan, was she
You could have had your Henry Kissinger.
Okay.
You could have had
So
your Henry Kissinger moment.
I did. I totally ignored her.
Good.
Because I wasn't sure if it was her, but I thought if it's her, I don't even want to acknowledge her presence. And I can't remember who I was talking to, but I think he introduced her as Judy. And I was just like, and just did one of these. And that's when I started getting like a little bit creeped out. Like, I don't even want to be around any of this shit.
The fuck was that?
I need my security guy.
It's
Where's the
trash.
bald guy?
I need someone to protect
security.
me from Judith Miller.
Well, I just don't want even
bad juju.
acknowledge.
Yeah,
You don't want the picture.
Well, it's not just it's not like I'm afraid of being seen with her. It's that if I actually start talking to this lady, I don't want, I was saying I went to a viewing of this Vice, this Adam McKay movie, and it was a good movie, and it was interesting. I mean, most of this stuff about Dick Cheney in terms of what he did as vice president, I was aware of because this was an era where I read, every book that came out and interviewed all the authors of the books about Dick Cheney. There was a lot of stuff I didn't know about his life personally at all. And it was, and it's interesting, but I also I don't want this guy to be humanized in any way. Because, but it's inevitable. If you make a film about somebody, of course, you're going to humanize them, right? Like you want a movie and you want to capture what drives them, what's their family relationships like. Even if it shows that the guy's a scumbag, he's still being humanized. And my feeling about this is that it's dangerous to humanize these figures because Dick Cheney's relevance to history is not what he did in his family life. And I can see the value of it, in the context of a book. Like if you want to seriously dive in and from an academic perspective or from a very thoughtful perspective, understand what makes some of these psychos who seek power obsessively and use that power to the detriment of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. Millions of people. I'm just thinking about the actual dead, which I think is probably closer to 750, and counting probably, in terms of what he unleashed. But
then it is in the millions. If you counting by what he unleashed,
right,
it is in the millions.
And so in my mind, it's and I can see it wouldn't be necessarily a very good movie to just show everything he did maybe as vice president and the implications of it. And I think that the movie captured a lot of that. I just am uncomfortable with any humanization of people like this. And that's why I never want to see them in person or any of that, because I'm sure they're human. Of course they're human. All humans are human.
Well, in a certain sense.
But for us to understand the implications of what they're doing, their humanity is wholly irrelevant. They are figures on a political stage using power, and there's not, if you're going to think about the humanity of all the people that were implicated by the decisions that Dick Cheney made as vice president, you could live for 1,000 years and not have the time to contemplate his humanity. The pain and suffering that this guy caused on innocent people, on children, on fathers, on mothers, on brothers, on sisters. It is so enormous that to contemplate his humanity is an injustice to these people. Because if you started down the road of contemplating the humanity of the people that this guy was responsible for killing, you would go insane and you wouldn't have time to do anything else. And so if any of that time is going to be spent, it should not be spent on contemplating his humanity. And as good as the movie is, you're not going to walk away with a sense of really understanding. It's irrelevant why, in many respects. It's that because we can never see into someone's life as to who the next person is going to be that's going to make those decisions. You need to look at it from the perspective of a member of the public, see what this guy is doing, and stop them. And, so I as far as I'm concerned, Judith Miller, if there was a law that could be passed that, like, she can go out, live her life, go buy an Airbnb, go buy a B&B in Vermont, or, go to Wyoming and have a ranch and, go away. But you should not be allowed to be a part of the public discussion.
She should work at a bodega staffed and owned by Iraqis.
Right. I mean,
that's what I would have.
If we could do a poetic justice, but it might be a little bit worse than that.
Yeah. And this is one of the oldest tricks in the conservative playbook, going back to Edmund Burke. Humanizing the oppressor, making people care about, the poor aristocrats, poor Marie Antoinette. That's in and of itself. That is inherently oppressive and inherently conservative.
Well, the funny
Marie
thing
Antoinette
Adam
had
McKay,
a
the guy
very
who made the movie, is very progressive.
It's McKay, right?
Yeah.
Marie Antoinette had a
and
very tough deal.
That
I will tell you.
Certainly not his intention. And I think, and it's also hard for me because I go into that movie and all of the evil things that he has done, I am fully aware of. So the only thing new for me in that movie, for the most part, is, he was a nice dad. Until he screwed over, Mary in the end for that race for his other daughter in his pursuit of power. He had flaws. He had pain or whatever it was. Or he's, a witty guy and whatever it is. So I don't necessarily see that movie as everyone else, does. But
Marie Antoinette had a very tough deal.
But
it was a tough deal.
That's one of the flaws in liberalism, and that's one of its weak points and why it's so vulnerable to fascism.
Is that
the idea that you have to extend some kind of graciousness across the aisle or give equal time? And I'm talking about liberalism as an ideology, not like Democrats.
No, I understand what you're saying. I think, to me, that's also a flaw with film as telling the story of this stuff. To be honest with you, like, you only have 2 hours.
Well, spoiler alert, Sam. Jesus Christ.
What?
I'm just kidding.
Dick Cheney turns out to be a jerk.
Yeah. Dick Cheney's a sociopath.
The thing is, it's a good movie. I enjoyed the movie.
Someone just pointed out in my Discord, though, which I think is actually a good point, that it might remind a lot of people that are currently sort of lionizing, I guess not Cheney as much, but Bush.
Yes.
That this was
John
actually a
McCain.
criminal organization.
Well, Bush comes off too as a complete.
Well, I'm saying, if any reminder of what the Bush administration was is a good thing.
That's why I'm so conflicted about it, because I go in there and, like, I know all this stuff is in the forefront of my mind, but most people do not.
A lot of people
don't. And if it takes, the movie's called Vice, and if it takes that to communicate, that's the thing. That's why I'm so conflicted about it. And it's not just that movie. I'm conflicted about movies that are of that whole genre. So, but
J. Edgar is another one.
I would imagine. I never saw that, but I would imagine
the
it's
libs
exact same
loved
problem.
it because he's a homo.
I watched it
Wow,
on a plane.
wow, wow.
Sean wouldn't even watch it because he's like, I don't give a fuck about that guy as a person. He's our fucking enemy, and that's how we need to be.
That movie, I say fuck that movie because God, it was boring. Jesus
What's that,
Christ.
J. Edgar
Oh,
Hoover?
It was awful.
I didn't see it. All right, so here we have, Brendan, will you put that down a little bit? Here we have, this is outside of Broward County, right? And we heard about Jack Posobiec and Roger Stone, and they apparently have assembled a crew of protesters. And of course, when you're protesting, you want all the votes counted. What do you say? Let's hear it.
We're not gonna take it. We're not gonna take it. We're not gonna take it anymore.
All right, well, let's hear the other one.
Renaissance got to go. Lock her up. 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 Lock her up.
It's a good song.
Dipset.
Like, what are they? It's nuts.
They're talking about
Matt,
locking
there's one
them up.
more in the tweet. I mean, the IM. This is, they're trying to stop the votes. They're trying to stop the votes, folks.
It's all about let's vote black. That's all it is. That's all it is. Identity politics. That's all it is. I mean, tell us, why do you support Gillum? You can't help stupidity. Go watch your pussy. How much is George Soros paying you? How much is George Soros paying you? Hey, look at collector's item. You're so classy. How about one reason why you support Gillum? You should put that on eBay for memorabilia. Why not? Because you don't have a reason. Because he's black. I don't have a reason. Because he's black. You told me something about if it was a white candidate, they wouldn't be out. But because he's black, that's why. Because they're racist. That's why.
Now, if you had went to that, now if
wait
you
a
went to
second.
her and you
Hold
said
on.
Medicare for
Hold on
all,
for a
she would have
second.
voted for Gillum. Man, I think that we got to acknowledge that. That's a perfect voter that could have been absolutely clipped off with a message of economic populism. But the corporate Democrats and Andrew Gillum, when he started criticizing Venezuela, that's when he lost that woman's
But think
vote.
of the total lack of awareness that she is sitting in a sea of white people. She is voting for a candidate who's whom has a, if you were to do a racial purity test, not purity per se on the individuals, but in terms of the of how many Caucasians, let's say, voted for DeSantis, like what percentage of DeSantis's vote were Caucasian? My guess is it would be well into the 80s. And this woman is saying that this is identity politics for people who come out for a progressive candidate, one of the most progressive candidates that we've seen in Florida running for governor in decades.
Best you wouldn't be saying that if Gillum quoted the bread book.
Well, speaking of identity politics, I saw some talk on Twitter that by picking Latina Lieutenant Governor Jeanette Nunes, that kept DeSantis's margins up enough in certain places, especially with right-wing Cubans.
That is pure
that
identity
he
politics.
won. That
Well,
if he wins, that's why.
Well, we played that clip. The clip where DeSantis was eloquently, pinned on his racism. He actually did do pure identity politics in the trash sense that we all criticize, where he literally ignored the merits of conversation and argument and said, "I'm a veteran." Which I oppose.
Right.
I don't agree with that kind of deployment of identity to not deal with argument or policy across the board. I agree. I critique that. And that's precisely what he did his whole campaign on.
Yeah. And people think that, I don't know, there's something really nonsensical about Hispanic voters who would vote for a Republican, but it is not that simple within the Hispanic quote unquote community. There are so many different currents of thought. And if you are a well-to-do Cuban in Florida, you probably will think that a Republican represents your interests.
Not even a well-to-do. I think first-generation Cuban tend to vote more Republican because they, in part because Obama dropped the embargo, but prior to that, it was the Republicans who were very pro-embargo of Castro, and at least, through the 80s and the 70s, Elian Gonzalez, that whole issue became, weaponized by the right.
Ted Cruz.
I just wanted to get him back in the arms of Castro. Why would you live in a capitalist hellscape when you could be there with your comrade uncle?
You're a corporate sellout.
Your mother's a corporate sellout, but your father doesn't do decisions based off of fear, so we got to get you back to Cuba.
I want to show this video to everyone who thinks we need bipartisan compromise and respect for the system and the norms still. Because, no.
What
the
happened
other side,
was Gillum stopped talking about free college education, and that lady went off the deep end. That's exactly what happened because of these fucking corporate sellout dams.
I've told the story, but not in a long time. When we were in Cuba, my wife at the time was shooting a movie, or I guess she was maybe my fiance, and
my wife.
And there was a statue of Jose Marti, who was a Cuban national hero from the 1800s, late 1800s, mid to late 1800s, and he was sort of like I don't know what the equivalent would be here, like a sort of a George Washington type, a little bit, and at least in terms of sort of the way popularly presented. And there was a statue of him that was, I don't know, about maybe half a mile from the American consulate, or whatever they called it. It wasn't actually a consulate, but the American outpost. And it was, the base of it was almost washed away. It had been, brass, and it was all greened over, and the base, the cement was washed away, and you could see the rocks in the cement of the base. And he's holding a child. And you go up to the statue and you realize he's holding Elian. Wow. And they have made it like Marti's statue has been there forever, with holding Elian. The distressed quality of the statue was built into it.
That's powerful.
Invented traditions.
Exactly.
Yes,
temporally bringing Marti.
You know what I love about Castro is that if Matt made that reference in front of him, he probably would have been like, "See, exactly. I was reading Hobsbawm and I had fuck with that statue." That's probably exactly what would happen.
No, that's exactly there was a lot of propaganda there that was sort of fascinating, particularly coming back around here at that time in post 9/11. We were still heavy in that, and it was a very similar quality to some of it, where I remember landing shortly after that in Nebraska, in Lincoln, Nebraska, and seeing a billboard that was something to the effect of when others ran away, they ran in. And I'm like, I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska. What? It was weird. Calling from a 240 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Okay. Good day, person, whoever that was. Calling from a 215 area code. Who's this? 215? 215.
Sam?
Yes?
Sam. Hello?
Mindy!
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Double dose.
Good. Sorry about the other day. I was a little wasted. Okay,
that's all
so
right.
here's what I want to say. I think I don't understand why the Democrats are being so passive. I mean, we had a really good victory on Tuesday. I mean, we got 34 seats, something like that.
I think 36.
We unseated some real 36. We unseated some real bad racist guys, and we were up against a really hard map. I mean, I don't mean to take any of the thunder away from John from San Antonio, but I mean, we had to defend 26 seats, and the Republicans had to defend 9 in the Senate. And in 2020, they have to defend 20 seats, and we have to defend 11. And everyone's walking around so depressed. And we did really, really good.
Yeah, I think Ben touched on this. There was, and it was what I was saying the day after too, is that there was such an emotional investment in Gillum and in Abrams and in Beto.
Gillum still might get it.
Well, he still might get it, but there was, 2 days ago we didn't think that was going to happen. There was even a chance. I still think it's a long shot, but I think there was just such an emotional investment. Like, there is a quality of folks on the left who really they want to love their politicians, and to have people who we think are so exciting and represent so much hope lose is, it's an emotional letdown. But I think you're right. When you start to look at this with sort of more sober eyes, Mindy.
Right.
And,
no, but I also... Yeah.
And you're right. You're right. It looks more hopeful. And now the Democrats themselves look, I am willing... If I believed that Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi were saying, we've got to reach across the aisle and blah, 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 and they were just saying it to say it, I would feel much more comfortable. When it comes out of Chuck Schumer's mouth, I'm just convinced that he thinks he's being clever.
I have a proposal. What about we confirm all your judges, and then
I think,
do something
like
for
Pat
Israel that I
Oswalt
want?
said, their new slogan, show you our bellies 2020.
Exactly.
I don't know. I think that we're letting them. The other thing that I'm having a problem with is I think we're letting the Republicans run the narrative here. I mean, we're acting like we walked away with our tail between our legs, and we unseated some really fucked up people, and we have the opportunity to do way more damage in 2020. We could basically take the Senate, keep the House, and possibly, if we get our crap together, we could put up a really good candidate, or 20,000 candidates or whatever, and we could, run the table in 2020. And I just think that our attitude, we're so burnt out. Do you know what I mean? So, but there's no cheerleaders. There's nobody saying, "Oh my God, we did a great job." Like Trump goes on TV and he says, it was a split decision. It wasn't a split decision. We had no opportunity to take the Senate.
Right.
Zero. And it was zero. And we were putting all of our behind Stacey Abrams, who probably really won, and Gillum, who probably really won, and we're going to be passive and pussies with this whole recount thing now because we're so polite. And I just think that we should just, we need somebody getting up there and cheering for us, because everybody seems so defeated.
We need swag. We need
I don't
to claim
get
victories.
it. I'm having a
Well, listen,
What?
Mindy. Listen, Mindy. I think you're right, but I think burnout is I think there's a big emotional letdown when you have this emotion. But I think you're right, and I think let's give people a week to a week, and then start up again, because people need to continue to organize. Right, now is the time, Mindy, for you to be building those networks. And, going out, organizing, and so that by the time, 2020 rolls around, you'll have already been pressuring the Democrats to do this stuff. You'll be pressuring your local Congress people, and you'll also have a network of people that you can mobilize.
Yeah, I mean, I think this. Oh, by the way, my neighbor won.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Boo. Yeah, right.
Who?
Are you going to have to
No,
move?
my neighbor won.
Are you gonna have to move?
Anyway, no, I think that we should start dissecting the Republican Party now. Like Mitch McConnell's up, and Lindsey Graham's up, and Cory Gardner's up, and we should start going after the weak links. We should start like decapitating them now. I don't mean decapitating, but we should
Hell
start
yeah.
going after them now. Like we should just start digging up
The
all
decapitation
the crap on them. We
strategy.
should. What? Yeah, don't you think, Michael?
I do. I am 100. I could not be more with you. I wish you were advising and writing speeches for Nancy Pelosi. 100%.
I wish I was Nancy Pelosi.
I wish you were
could do
Nancy
that.
Pelosi too.
You know
oh my
how
God!
awesome
Could you
it would
imagine
be?
if
First of all,
Nancy
Nancy
Pelosi
calling
calls
into
in?
the
She's
show,
like,
so
first
like
of
that."
all, these guys are fucking losers.
All right, Mindy.
I don't understand. All right, so you guys have a great weekend, but I think
too.
everybody needs to have take the weekend, but like the middle of next week or so, we're going to start putting pressure on everybody that they're going to have to start like pulling up their big girl pants or boy pants, and we're going to have to get our crap together because we can do this in 2020. Because like after 2020, we're screwed. I mean, we picked up 6 governorships. We can ungerrymander 6 states now. I mean, it's beautiful what we did. I think it was great what we did.
All right, that's a great way to end the phone calls for the day, Mindy.
You let me know.
Bye, guys. Love you.
Well, I love you back.
You let me know if you want me to send some Antifa interns to your neighbor's lawn, okay?
Yeah, I know it's bad. I can't even look. Thank God I never say her. Goodbye.
Bye.
Have a great
Love
We're
ya.
gonna have to
Your
mobilize.
neighbors of
All right,
bitch.
folks. I'm sorry.
This is
We
Rachel
are done with calls for the day. I know a lot of people holding on. We'll do a couple of IMs and then we'll get out of here. Just got a report. PayPal is canceling the accounts of the Proud Boys, Gavin McInnes. However, also Atlanta Antifa, Antifa Sacramento, the Anti-Fascist Network. Is according to a source familiar with the matter. I don't know what that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with things like this. It can be just as easily used against the left.
Don't deplatform.
And they'll look for examples to do so. They
Exactly.
don't
It's a losing game.
Okay, I'm going to refrain from talking about something that I probably shouldn't talk about. Wow.
You have been
Whoa.
the Edward R. Murrow of this whole process.
Badwagon. Didn't Rachel do a segment a while ago about DeSantis being one of the first Republicans to benefit directly from the Russian stolen Dem emails? He asked for help from them. DeSantis was identified as the candidate that asked for and benefited from the Russian stolen emails. Remember that came out? There was a Republican candidate? That's interesting. Rain Saint, cheers on rainy Friday from Mississippi. MR crew, the constant flood, rising fascism and far-right conservatism through both our politics and daily conversation and personal relations. Outrage becomes harder to distill. As people are obviously discussing, I feel that outrage on a daily basis. Do you think on some level we all deserve to burn for letting this happen? Well, I don't know if we deserve it, but we're probably going to get it.
anti-people sentiment.
I agree. I don't like anti-people sentiment.
Garrett, where can we find the song you guys played to go into the fun half?
MR Tart on SoundCloud.
MR Tart on SoundCloud? Oh, we should be putting this on the Spotify.
MR Fun by Tart.
Oh, yeah. We should be putting this into the Spotify account. We're going to set up that MR Spotify account. In a certain sense. Sean, Rick Scott yelling fraud because they found votes that he suppressed is like a kid claiming invasion of privacy after his mother's find porns in his sock drawer.
That's totally what this is.
Finnice T. Is there a way to IM through the web? The only way I know through is the mobile app. We're working on that. Winnipeg Craig, is there even a real John from San Antonio? I don't even know anymore. TMBS is my jam. Sam, which one is the worst? Boris Johnson or Epstein?
Johnson. Epstein's
You got to look at power. Power is what you got to look at.
Thick Mulvaney. What is the best on what Trump has on Lindsey Graham? Dead girl or live boy? I think just a desire to be Secretary of State.
I just want power. You don't have to have anything on me.
One more, Nick. Matt, where are your degrees in? Does anyone else at MR have a post-secondary degree?
I've got English and Communication Studies undergrad and Media Culture Communication for master's.
Suck it.
Media culture. I got a year worth of law school. It's not quite a degree.
I spent time at law school. I don't
got a
know.
degree.
I got into a prestigious graduate program. That was all I needed for my ego.
I got
That's
a
where you were
master's
gonna head.
degree from
What'd
the
you say?
School of Life.
Michael was going to.
Yeah, I was gonna
when
go.
you first came here, you were going to go off to the LSE or something, right?
Yep. Yeah, I was accepted to the LSE. It's the only grad school I applied to.
Some gizmo. I have a comment about the Sessions protest that refers back to a previous guest of the show. Pretty please pick up the phone. I can only call him Fridays. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Besides,
already
you had
hung
something positive to add, which isn't
3:15.
interested in
Baby Doc Gooden, Matthew Whitaker looks like an orderly in some southern retirement home. Ossig, obviously this is way too early to know, but given the even with all the expectations for this year, the Dems lost ground in the Senate and will have even more seats they'll have to flip in 2020. How many, depending on Arizona and Florida pan out, they may need 5. We'll talk about that later, but I think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be tough, but I also thought this year would be a lot worse. So, Colin from Nebraska. Suggestion for Sam's Tinder profile. Hey, ladies, if you voted left, swipe right. We can have a collective of women at my place where I'll cook a delicious dinner from Blue Apron while we hunt a killer. Okay. I don't have time for all the rest of that. And the final IM of the day. SEMA is running against Cornyn. Okay, folks, see you Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bulb, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. Into years while I shifted in and out